confidence to pull it off. Morton calls good game. Unbelievable. Sergio Ramos wins! First ever CRL World Champion!
Team Liquid is going to be your champion! Mugi 2021!
He's done it! Mohamed Light, World Champion!
It's the moment we rise. Come together tonight. Let a flame that we keep it burning strong. We are the best of the best. We will not back down our rest. Till we drink from the
Clash Royale League starts now!
That's right, we start now. The finals for our May monthly. Only one player walks away with a golden ticket, but of course, points on the line, trips to World Finals, hanging in the balance, and most importantly, bragging rights for this big month of May. Hello, welcome. I'm Rich Slayton, joined by Joshua A.C. Sharon and Jackson Juicy J. Wall for your third month of qualifiers for our Clash Royale League World Finals. As said before, lots on the line today. We're down to our final six. Josh, we have a pretty banger matchup as our first one in the upper bracket today. I think you're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, who is that? It's Pedro and Mohamed Light, right? Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Pedro has impressed me throughout this entire tournament. I was talking to you guys after the show was over. I'm just such a huge fan of Pedro's gameplay. It looks like he knows exactly what he's doing. He controls the entire match. I love his miner and mortar gameplay. This is so reminiscent of when Lapacati and Igor were just exploding onto the scene. Their talent, his talent right here, it just looks like he's a lot better than most of his opponents.
Juicy, before we jump into our house game for the day, hot seat pick. Who wins our golden ticket?
I was asked the other day about this, and I think I'm going to go with Adriel. Adriel, played fantastically yesterday. He did lose to, I believe, Mohamed Light, and if you're going to lose to anyone, that's the person to lose to.
Well, let's get into the winning and the losing. Josh, take us away with our format for this weekend.
That's right. Well, every single month we're starting off with the Path of Legends. You finish up top 1,000 on the CRL leaderboards, the in-game leaderboards. You move on to compete for one of these golden tickets. You move from top 1,000 to top 32 to top 8, which is where we are today. Actually, it's top 6 at this point. Once you win a monthly final, you receive a golden ticket and the entry into the World Finals. World Finals, top 16 players. It's going to be 7 golden tickets and 7 through the point leaderboard system, and then 2 from China. We're going to move on to the next one right here. We're going to talk about the actual format of the competition. Right here we go. 8 players, double elimination. Best of 3, same format as the last couple years. Use unique decks every single time. You can't repeat if you use a hog in game 1. You can't use it in game 2 or 3. Juicy, what are we playing for?
We're playing for a lot of money. $1.3 million overall prize pool. The prize pool for this monthly finals is on your screen right now. First place getting 16 grand, as well as that golden ticket. Qualifying for the World Finals gets you an extra 20 grand. Let's go in and look at the bracket, Rich.
And it's a good one, of course. We've already seen some great action. 2 players eliminated yesterday in our first round of the lower bracket, Lord Seb and Faust with the early exit. And now we're down to 6 on the lower side of the bracket. 4 players who have to win out to win it all. Sosa, Mugi, Adriel, and Hugo. And then in the upper bracket, still with a life to give, the banger of a matchup, Mr. Clash Royale himself, Mohamed Light, and our early Rookie of the Year candidate, the points leader, Pedro. And with all those matchups, let's go ahead and take a look at our predictions yesterday. Josh got everything wrong, and Juicy and I were 100% accurate with all our predictions. And looks like today there won't be much separation because we are all going Mugi, we're all going Adriel, and we're all going Mohamed Light. Josh, there were some spicy picks yesterday, but it sounds like everyone here is just going for some oatmeal.
Yeah, it just, all these players are, it looks like there's a clear favorite every single set, and that's certainly not going to actually dictate the outcome. But Mugi, he had a slow start to the day yesterday, but then he heated up. He won his last 2 games in order to advance today. Adriel, we've seen him over the past couple months. He's been so talented. and 2-0s everywhere whenever he gets a win. And there's not much to say about Mohamed Light. Another month of only choosing Mohamed Light is the way to go.
Now, Juicy, big question for you here. We have Sosa, Hugo, and Pedro as the 3 underdogs according to our picks. Which one of those is the most likely to give us the upset?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that, and honestly, I think I'd have to go for Sosa. I picked against him a lot yesterday, and he proved me wrong every single time. Mugi, like Josh said, a little bit of a slow start. If he has another one of those today, I can definitely see Sosa coming with a huge upset.
Well, we'll see if he's able to put it together. Of course, has certainly had some big moments here, and that's going to be our first match of the day, Sosa versus Mugi. And you have a pretty tough out here if you're Sosa against the 2021 world champion. And I picked against Mugi yesterday, kind of thinking that maybe his work ethic wasn't there. We've heard rumors that he's playing a little bit less these days, and he had a tough game 1. But Josh, he bounced back really well in games 2 and 3 against Lord Seb. Some of the best Clash Royale we saw all weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm taking a look at his decks right now, and game 1, even in the second set, he started off with the Monk Balloon Miner deck that struggled a lot in yesterday's games. I think it went 0-2 overall. But then he switched it up, got with what he knew. He went to Hog, Mortar, Earthquake, Quick Cycle, and then he went RG, Fireball, Tombstone. Sometimes you just have to get a win. It doesn't matter if your opponent can predict you. It just matters, what am I playing well with, especially if you aren't super well versed with all the matchups inside the meta. Sometimes, even if your opponent predicts you, you can just outplay it. And it feels like he got solid matchups yesterday with those 2 decks, but it just felt like he could have outplayed any of the matchups that he could have been given.
Now, Juicy, Sosa's been a little bit down the middle with his deck picks. We saw him run very similar deck sets throughout yesterday, and of course, even in some of the qualifying stages. Hog EQ, E-Giant, Minor Wall Breakers. Does he need to start mixing things up more to have success here against Mugi, or is it stick to what you know and try to make good picks game by game?
I think like what Josh was saying, I think Mugi's going to go towards more comfort like he started to do yesterday. That's where he started to find success again. And what Sosa has to do is he has to try and snipe those comfort decks, because you're not going to outskill one of the most talented players to ever do it. What you got to do is you got to make good deck picks, maybe go a little bit away from your comfort. He's a versatile player enough to be able to do so, and that's what he needs to do to beat Mugi here.
Well, we'll see in just a couple of moments if Sosa is up to the task of getting a little less predictable. Throughout his competition so far is primarily lean, as I said before, on Hog and E-Giant, lots of Royal Giant in there as well. Some pigs, some graveyard, and I think that'll be the big question here. We saw this as kind of a challenge a lot yesterday. The graveyard Goblin Hut, let's call it problem, if you will, where it seems like players are running into it, Juicy, where they either have a great matchup against it or they are in absolute trouble. What are you doing to prepare for this devastating deck?
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly. It is a devastating deck, and it's a problem, in my opinion. I mean, there's a couple decks that really counter it. The Earthquake type stuff with the Quick Cycle, either Pigs or Hog EQ, and the other option would be maybe like a Minor Poison. Even then, though, you got to watch out, because the Earthquake and the Poison doesn't fully counter the Goblin Hunt really anymore. Even at 1 HP, those Goblin Hunts can get a lot of chip damage, so you also need other stuff to help you out. For example, we talked about a lot yesterday, the Mother Witch. Mother Witch can be a nice card to put in maybe a no big spell deck to supplement to get ready for those Graveyard Goblin Hunts. The Mother Witch is so good versus the Graveyard, as you guys know, as well as that Goblin Hunt. Great counter to it.
Josh, are there any parts of the meta that are maybe unturned, right? We've talked a lot in the past about how, hey, a card gets strong and it makes another card more popular. Recruits making Fisherman much more popular, what comes to mind initially. Are there any cards in the meta that you think we might see today as a resurgence, maybe swapped in here or there, specifically to be able to hedge against this deck?
That's a really good question. I think we already kind of saw a little bit of an evolution in the meta with just Mother Witch being used in general. A lot of these decks, like the E-Giant deck, has swapped in the Mother Witch instead of, the extra hero or the extra champion or Dark Prince, or whatever it usually is. And so I think that's the main one. I think we can always see Valkyrie be substituted instead of Miner or instead of Mighty Miner. So Valkyrie is another one of those cards, but we're not seeing a lot of Giant Skeleton Hoggy, so I wouldn't be too surprised if we don't see that.
Well, here we go. Let's jump into game number 1, and Sosa has to be at least somewhat happy having Snowball here against, look at that, the Goblin Hut to open things up.
It's always my favorite thing to talk about a specific deck, talk about the struggles against it, and then we see it in game number 1. It always makes me feel good and like we're keeping up to date with this.
It's almost like we do this as a job, Josh. So, Sosa, a lot going on here. This is an interesting twist, especially considering what his deck pool has primarily looked like coming into this competition. EQ, Valk for his Hog deck here with the Inferno Tower as well. It's not like these aren't pieces we've seen as part of Hog EQ, but you throw in Snowball and Bats, and this is certainly a little different than we're used to these days.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what his last 2 cards are going to be. I'm thinking it's Archers, and it could be Goblins as well. Okay, so I love this deck choice from Sosa. If you go against any type of Goblin Hut deck, you cycle so quickly, you block at the bridge with Valk, you have plenty of opportunities. You can either go Goblins or Archers in the back against the Graveyard. This is a phenomenal deck choice from Sosa, and it really just shows how studied he is on his opponents. And instead of Archers, it's Musketeer. But still impressive. I still like the deck choice.
An interesting choice here out of Sosa to go no champion, right? Not going with an Archer Queen, which has been his most popular choice to go alongside Hog Rider. And, I guess you have that question. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, Josh, and nice Hog shots, 2 Hog shots, plus a Muskie going wild on the left-hand side. Great lead early here for Sosa. We talked about this yesterday, Josh, that, you want that 3-card cycle, obviously, the powers and the like an Archer Queen. But on the flip side, we saw someone yesterday stacking Musketeers in a way you can't do with a champion.
Yeah, I think Sosa just recognized that you don't need a champion. Sometimes decks work better without them. You could potentially use the Skeleton King or the Mighty Miner in this deck with a lot of success, but I just really like this deck choice from Sosa. The stacking of Musketeers, I think, could be another one of those evolutions in the meta where we see a lot of players just try and stack Musketeers instead of using the Archer Queen like we had often seen before.
Here we go. Bats in, 2 Musketeers down, and this is all getting absorbed. And you see Mugi trying to defend as cheaply as possible, does a very good job of it because he knew that Hog was coming to the right-hand side. So very well played by the 2021 World Champion to spend as little as he could and get it done. Goblins going for a bit more chip on the left-hand side. Here we go, sudden death overtime. Lead now for Mugi in the right-hand lane, 12:58 to 13:20, but the dual lane pressure for Sosa could be a problem.
These Inferno Towers are really nice because he's not trying to get the most value out of the Inferno Tower ever. He's just trying to delay attacks. And by doing that, it wastes 20 seconds off the board every single time and allows him to continue to go in with Hog. So I love what he's doing right there. The pressure with the Bats up top and then the Valk defending is solid. But as we see, he's down 500 HP. But it's not the most worrisome event for him. He can still just get aggressive now that we finally hit Triple Elixir. This is when we're going to see an encore of just Hog EQ at the bridge again and again and again.
And that Hog will not get pulled by the Goblin Hut. That's absolute disaster for Mugi. He can't believe it. And that's a GG. Sosa sliding that one by the pull and getting game number 1.
Those Inferno Towers at the bridge were so deadly. It always took out one of the Rascal Boy and then one of the Rascal Girls. It wasted time off the clock, and it won him the game. That Inferno Tower sniping the Goblin Hut, and then just the Goblin Hut in general just missing. He didn't push it with another card, and the Hog went to the tower instead. Some errors once again from Mugi.
Well, do keep in mind that this is an international competition. And so, for my co-casters, Josh in particular, waking up very early this morning, whereas in Tokyo right now, the time's 11:15 p.m. So we have people playing and casting with all different levels of sleep throughout the world.
I actually got a lot of sleep last night. I was very, very pleased. I was in bed, tucked in at 11 p.m.
I like that you were tucked in. That's maybe the best part of that story. Here we go. Monk knocking the RG back. Bird alongside, and that will take care of business.
Wow, and the pushback knocks the Phoenix backwards, so that way it can still almost, not entirely, but it can still take out a lot of the Monk's health and just reset the game right there. A funny interaction, and one that we see that's pretty common, but it still makes me laugh. It's the same concept as the Ice Wizards that used to battle each other at the bridge, where it's funny to look at.
This is our first time seeing Sosa run the Royal Giant this weekend. He ran it a lot during the qualifier portions, and in fact, Royal Giant was his most played win condition at 9 plays, with Hog Rider coming in right behind that at 8. Any thoughts on why we didn't see Sosa run Royal Giant much yesterday? You think that maybe he was concerned about a step up in caliber of competition here on the monthly final weekend, or just making different kind of deck picks?
I think a lot of it has to do with just RG is so solid overall that as long as you get an okay matchup, you can just win based off macro abilities. So it's not always the best deck in general, but it's so good at just allowing you to be better than your opponent. So I think once you hit the top 8, you really need to focus in and figure out what decks you believe are the best in the meta.
And that was a nice little interaction there for Mugi, with the Monk tanking both towers, getting the good reflection, and giving time for the Phoenix Egg to be reborn, forcing out the earlier than probably desired Phoenix from Sosa. So here we go, 30 seconds left in regular time. Not a lot separating these two. Sosa does have dual lane damage right now, with 2438 on the right-hand side, 2355 on the left-hand side of Mugi's towers, and currently the lead. We'll see how much that dual lane pressure comes into play as we get later into this match. And here we go into sudden death, just a few seconds away.
Really solid lightning right there, getting so much value and taking out the Phoenix Egg instead of locking on to the, I believe it was the Fishermen's that were played on the board, so I really like how he did that. Now, here we go, a bridge battle that I haven't seen in forever. It's going to be Monk, RG. I mean, both players are playing the exact same cards, but somehow Mugi's interactions are just so much cleaner, gets so much damage, and he's going to overwhelm just like that.
And you can see the look on Sosa's face. He knows how that one went down. We saw 3 Royal Giants yesterday, 2 enough for Mugi in this one, and we're going to game number 3.
I really hope we get a replay at the end of game 2, because I'm trying to figure out what it could have been. It had to just be an early activation on the Monk messed everything up, correct?
It's very, very possible. And let's go ahead and take a look at game number 3. Hog available for Mugi, and looks like he will be most likely going Hog Rider. And with the Archer Queen out for his opponent, we already saw Hog in game number 1 from Sosa, so we know that's not the direction he's going in here. Might be going Miner MK Prince.
Hog quick cycle, but still going to allow some elixir leakage. Bomb tower in response to the Hog Rider, so we do have bomb tower plus the Archer Queen.
So maybe going drill cycle here instead, not a lot of bomb tower being played. And there we go, drill comes out. Not a lot of bomb tower being played alongside the Miner MK Prince deck.
Guards to clean up everything very nicely. Both players playing solidly in the first minute of gameplay. Just trying to cycle out some spells, get a little bit of damage. It's always nice when you're the Hog player if you can just, even cycling Earthquake on top of the tower is value. You're getting so much damage just by cycling an Earthquake and a log.
So seeing Sosa go for body blocks early on in this one, is that the right call? Or should he be cycling back and primarily going for those bomb tower pickups?
I actually love that play from Sosa, and I've questioned why a lot of players don't really do it early on. I see a lot of drill gameplay where you have the E-Wiz and the Golden Knight or the Bandit or the Ghost in cycle, and players are still choosing to use the Tornado in response to the Hog. So I actually love that he's using just the body block right there. I think that's a great play from Sosa.
EQ in on the bomb tower. Guards going to come out to help and shut down that damage. Still lead for Mugi. by a little over, well, now let's add that log on top of it, about 250 HP. Actually, almost 300.
Sosa's doing a great job of defending, but I just don't know how much damage. It's going to be hard for him to get the exact damage he needs just because these guards are going to be so valuable in this matchup. He only has the log and probably the fireball as well, but right here, I mean, these are solid pushes. I just don't know how much damage we're going to see from it.
And Hog goes to break up the drill, Ice Spirit in, fireball, and this giant skeleton, I think that's in range, yeah. Boom. Wow. That is a huge connection for Sosa. Mugi almost did absolute brilliance there. The idea was right, but the Hog just didn't quite pull the giant skeleton far enough away. And now he's left wanting on that right-hand side as we head into sudden death.
Wall breakers are always a phenomenal response to the drills, but it just feels like Hog is not the answer. It just can't be the correct method in order to defend those drills.
Very, very nice Hog EQ cycle. This Musketeer will require a response, and Mugi knows that, so he doubles down here. Archer Queen goes into her cloak and does not give much to Mugi out of that interaction. 1900 to 1495, as we are now with just 80 seconds left.
Choosing not to Earthquake on top of the tower, just going to cycle the Ice Spirit instead. Are we going to see another Earthquake paired? But that's going to be solid defense again. Sosa, he's not giving up Hog shots. I love seeing that in players where, you know, sometimes you have to spend 55 elixir in order to defend a Hog. But if we see no shots, that's exactly what you're supposed to do.
And that Ice Spirit,
wow,
not going to pull the giant skeleton back. I think that one's just out of range this time. Yes, it is. 12:05 remaining for another body block right now. Is that Hog going to get DPS down in time? And it will. 15:18 to 12:05, 45 seconds left.
Ice Spirit at the bridge to take the aggro from the Archer Queen, and using the Hog on offense, that's going to be a very nice fireball paired with the drill. And he's struggling to defend these. I mean, his offense is very solid, but he is just not defending as well as he needs to.
Late bomb tower gets care of one Hog, but Sosa has to be careful here. Hog number 2 on its way in. It gets stuck there in the middle. Guards plus giant skeleton, DPS it down. 10, 20, 9, 15. 15 seconds left. Drill plus fireball on. This Hog goes back to the drill instead of going across the river. And that's going to be Sosa, proving everybody wrong today, taking the big win here over Mugi and staying alive in our May monthly final.
Yeah, he just applied so much pressure throughout the match. It really comes down to, can you apply enough pressure with the giant skeleton in order to force out crazy responses? And we saw it. I mean, it forced out Mugi to respond with a Hog on top of the drill, and a lot of mistimed logs. It felt like the drill just, it had 1 HP left several times throughout the match.
And you can see just the stoicism of Sosa. No big fist pumping. There, I think that was almost a smile we saw there for a second. You know, we said earlier yesterday, another day at the office for Mohamed Light, Sosa acting like he's been here before when in fact he hasn't. So definitely excited to see the confidence and the calm nature. And Josh, let's go through some of this match play, because this first deck you were really excited about.
Yeah, it comes down, oh wow, the Goblins were very nice at the bridge. I loved the Hog plus Goblins pushes, and then I loved the Inferno Towers at the bridge. It was creating so much havoc for Mugi. He just could not figure out a way to get past the Inferno Towers at the bridge. All of his troops kept dying to it.
And the mirror match, or near mirror match, I think it was a precise mirror, goes in the favor of Mugi. And then here we go to the final game, and you see the drill come in, and that Hog, you have to imagine that was Mugi trying to play the Hog into the lane he wants to attack and far enough away from the drill, but just wasn't quite far enough away. It turned back to go attack the drill, put no offensive pressure on the board, and instead turned into a big-time win for Sosa. So Mugi will end in our top 6, get some good points and some good money, but Sosa now moves on to a guaranteed top 4 finish, which is definitely one of those things you might say was exceeding expectations. But I have to wonder, after seeing his response, if that's exactly what he expected.
Yeah, I just want to say it once again, I was talking about it yesterday, but he has a beautiful mentality when it comes to Clash Royale and competing. He wants to compete in every single tournament he can possibly do. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 6, it doesn't matter the level of competition. He just wants to get reps in, and it shows right here. This is his first time in the top 8, and he's going to advance to the top 4. A lot of the new players and a lot of the older players in the community. I mean, we've seen, who was it? Faust. He struggled a lot in this top 8, but Sosa is showing that if you put in the work, you can just compete with the best of the best.
And, you know, I want to bring this deck. I want to take a snapshot in your brain of this Hog EQ deck. I want to bring it up once Juicy comes on board, but really curious about this Hog EQ deck in this matchup. And we'll get a full 3 of us talking about that. Let's go on to the mirror matchup from game number 2, where, yep, you know, sometimes you come out on top, sometimes you don't. Fireball versus Lightning. Fireball won the day. A nice bridge fight for Mugi. And then on to game number 3 in this matchup. And yeah, Mugi goes Hog. Mugi's great with Hog. Sosa played a brilliant game, and we saw no Bomb Tower in game 1 as part of it with the Inferno Tower in that Hog deck instead. And you have to imagine you're saving the Bomb Tower for something. So it was the Bomb Tower saved for game 3. Ended up being absolutely brilliant for him in game number 3. So Sosa and Mugi all wrapped up and done. And now we've got one more player moving on to the next stage. And I don't know, did I hear that we have Juicy back already?
Yes, sir.
Juicy, talk to me a little bit about this deck here in game number 1, because people have been trying to figure out what's a good way to have a counter to this Graveyard Goblin Hut deck while still also having counters in other decks. Is this cracking the code here a little bit?
You know, I've been thinking about it a lot, and honestly, you know, Sosa, you're right. He has the Valkyrie for the Skelly King. He's got the Goblins for the Graveyard, Earthquake for the Goblin Hut. But the biggest missing piece here is the log. Without the log, it's really hard to deal with the Rascals, the Goblins, and even the Goblin Hut you need the log for. So I think this matchup's a lot more even than we think. And I think that if Mugi didn't, or if he didn't mess up that last Goblin Hut, or rather if Sosa didn't have a very nice push with his Hog Rider with his Goblins in the last like winning moment for him, I think that Mugi definitely could have won this game just by chipping away at the graveyards and using the arrows to kill the stuff like the bats and the goblins. The snowball is just really not the card you need in order to beat this deck.
Well, we'll see how people might adapt throughout the day. Of course, we've seen metas evolve within a single day of competition, so there's certainly some possibility for growth throughout this one. And you know, speaking of growth, Sosa has been competing since 2021, not a long competitive career. You know, didn't make it past, I think, the top 30-something in CRL in the past, and now he finds himself, as we look at our bracket, deep into our monthly qualifiers. And he's going to walk away, no matter what happens from this point, he's going to walk away with, yes, some nice money, but also he came into the weekend ranked 16 over on our leaderboards, and he is stacking up points this weekend, Josh.
That's going to be so massive for him, especially because top 16 right now is top 16. But if we take a look in September and October, well, a lot of those players in the top 16 are going to be having golden tickets. So this performance paired with the likelihood that a lot of the players that are above him are going to qualify for a golden ticket, right now he's almost already in a position where he's technically in contention, and he's already technically in that top 7 range. If we look in this very technical.
When we think about the golden ticket side, right? Unless someone from way outside ends up taking that golden ticket spot. And of course, he'll be waiting the victor of Adriel versus Hugo. Juicy, you got it right the first time. You called it that Sosa most likely would be the best person to upset in these first 3 matches. Let's talk about this. Are we in for a potential another upset here with Adriel versus Hugo?
Yeah, I would just have to go with a hard no. Like I said, Adriel is my pick for the golden ticket winner. I said it day 1. I'll say it again now. I think that he's, you know, calm and confident. Like AC's been talking about, he's been 2-0ing everyone, not losing a single game in these sets. I have full confidence in him in order to be able to win this game. Hopefully, I'm not cursing him.
Well, it's curses have certainly been delivered here on these shows for quite a while. And you know, I take a look at Hugo right now, Josh. Certainly a talented player. Adriel does seem to be in another universe, but Hugo has been very good for a very long time.
That's right. I mean, he's been inside the community. He's been competing for so long. You don't finish top 34, top 22, top 30, you don't finish that high so consistently if you don't have a very clear level of talent. And so clearly he can compete, but he's always struggled in the limelight. As soon as it becomes the biggest moments, we've seen mistakes after mistakes. It has been so brutal. A lot of the time, that final month, it's can Hugo finish top 4 in the monthly finals? Or can he get this golden ticket when 3 of the players he's competing against in the top 8 have a golden ticket? As soon as it gets crunch time, he does start to struggle sometimes. So once the pressure's on, especially if he goes down 0-1, this could be huge against his psyche, against his mental fortitude. But at the same time, if he starts off 1-0, that could be just massive for him. So crunch time is difficult for him, but he can absolutely do it.
One of the interesting things about Hugo is that you take a look at the CRL 2021, which was in many ways a very similar format to this year. He made it to the top 32, he made it to the group stage, I believe 6 times or 5 times in 2021. So the guy certainly has talent, and we'll see him put on display here as you two take it away. Hugo versus Adriel.
Wow. And as soon as I make a comment, and you know, he probably doesn't have Tornado in cycle, otherwise he would have tornadoed. But as soon as I make a comment talking about Ewiz plus Golden Knight or Ewiz plus Bandit, one of the players does it. And I have a lot of pull in the community, Juicy.
There you go. You're clairvoyant. We're hopping into game 1. Adriel versus Hugo. At the top of your screen, Adriel with the Monk Hog EQ. Hugo, like AC said, Golden Knight, Ewiz, Cannon Card. You guys have seen this deck. Golden Knight, NATO, Drill, Bridge Spam. It's an interesting matchup. It's generally, I would say, like pretty difficult from both players to defend. I think Adriel might have a slight advantage just because a lot of the time Hugo's gonna be forced to use those tornadoes on defense versus the Hog Rider and not be able to break through on offense with that tornado along with the Magic Archer or Golden Knight.
Yeah, the Magic Archer is going to be pretty scary throughout the match, but Earthquake plus Log will always take it out, so that's probably how he's going to be wanting to use it. Right here, going in with the Hog, knowing his opponent has Tornado. It's kind of funny. It forces him to leak Elixir, and so technically Adriel could have kind of, I don't know, it's an interesting push when you know your opponent is leaking Elixir and they have Tornado in cycle. But sometimes, you know, the best play is still just getting out the offensive attack, even if you know it's not going to reach the tower.
We talked about it a bit yesterday, but something one of the best Hog EQ players does, Ian77, is he'll go for, like when he knows his opponent's in a situation like that, like leaking Elixir with the Tornado in hand, he'll go with the Hog all the way in the back. And what that does is either it forces out a card of some sort, or it forces Hugo to leak Elixir for even longer before he activates the King versus the Hog Rider.
That is a really cool play, and I never really recognized it as a play, so I like hearing that. That's something that I can add to my repertoire, so that's very nice. 37 seconds left. Magic Archer getting a little bit of value, taking out the bomb tower completely and almost piercing the Monk as well. Musketeers, I mean, we're seeing them time and time again. I feel like the Musketeer, I don't know, has the Musketeer grown inside the meta? It feels like it's becoming very popular right now.
Yeah, after the Archer's nerf, I think Musketeer definitely took the main kind of ranged glass cannon role in the meta. The other main reason for that is the Archer Queen is definitely a lot weaker than it once was. The better champs right now are the Monk and the Mighty Miner. And the the Musketeer does a great job of pairing with both of those.
Yeah, we're seeing it in these Hog decks. You just cycle the Musketeer in the back, and 20 seconds later, you have another Musketeer while also having a Hog on the board, so it just becomes really crazy. Right here, he is defending so well, but as soon as I say that, gives up so much damage on that. Just, I mean, it's the Golden Knight dash. That's all you're looking for with these drill decks. You think it's a drill deck, but really it's just a Golden Knight NATO deck.
Golden Knight still got it. I want to quickly point out just a small mistake Hugo's continually doing throughout this match. He keeps tornadoing the Hog Rider, not in the most optimal placement. He's playing it in a way so that it's closer to the King Tower than necessary. You want to his tile needs to be up one and then one more to the left. That way, the King Tower will take a lot less Hog hits. We got in a situation like this yesterday where if you continually Hog or tornado a Hog to your King Tower over and over again, wow, he actually messes up this time. But sometimes the King Tower can actually get dangerously low.
Wow, and just like last time, I remember you talked about it, where if just one interaction would have been a little bit differently, the Hog player would have lost. And so we're going to see if that comes back to bite him as this game moves on. Right there, beautiful prediction with the bomb tower, not going to allow the Magic Archer to start going after the guards and getting the chip on top of the tower. 16-18 to 17-44, but also the opposing towers for each player is also pretty low, so we can't just see one singular lane of pressure. I like that at Magic Archer. You're looking for one shot if you can get it.
He needs everything you can get, especially without having any big spell in this deck. Magic Archer's still alive. Log gonna come through and take it out. 14 seconds left. Audriel needs damage. Here comes a drill, a Hog, AQ on one side. Can you defend this drill properly? Goblin's on tower.
Yes,
that's gonna be game.
Wow, he has nothing for that. Hugo with a dominant performance right there. And just, yes, the tornadoes weren't totally clean all the time. Obviously, one of the Hogs didn't go to the King Tower, so that's going to be classified as an unclean tornado. But other than that, he applied pressure. He got the damage with the Magic Archer whenever he could. Forced out responses from Audriel. And Audriel just kind of looked uncomfortable. He didn't get the best pushes that we're used to seeing.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Did he not have enough elixir for the guard at the end there? Or was it like...
honestly couldn't tell you.
I gotta get a replay on that because I'm so confused how he just, or why he just led that Goblin. Maybe he realized he was still down damage and he just lost and he gave up, but that was interesting to see. Either way, we're hopping into game 2. Remember guys, it is duels formatting best of 3. Any cards played previously cannot be repeated. Looks like we have a bit of a minor mirror matchup. Hugo with the minor poison wall breakers and Audriel with the minor mortar.
Yeah, probably just substituting the Archer Queen because he already used the mortar earlier in the set. Right here, Audriel, I mean, he had a great start to this game, applying a lot of pressure, getting the poison value that he needed, and he has a 400 HP head start on his opponent 1 minute into the game. So we have Mighty Miner Musketeer, and we have the Miner Mortar. In these mirror matches between just the Miner Mortar and the Miner Bomb Tower, which one do you like better as a player? I think I've heard that the Mortar does well, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Mortar versus wall breakers. I think maybe Mortar has a slight advantage just because you can apply a lot more pressure, and it's also a great counter to the wall breakers, of course. The other thing I really want to point out, I talk about it a lot, but it's the Mighty Miner versus the Musketeer when it comes to the champions. This Archer Queen really is... Oh, sorry, I meant to say Mighty Miner versus Archer Queen. But yeah, Archer Queen actually dies to Poison Log. So that's definitely a big interaction to look for. So it's really hard to preserve your 3-card cycle. As for the Mighty Miner, there's not really a great counter. Audriel doesn't have a great counter to it. So I would say that Hugo might have a slight advantage just because of that. But as we can see, Mortar locking on the tower here. So all of my words turn into dust as Audriel takes a very nice damage lead here.
Going in with Mighty Miner, protecting the Miner with that ability. Miner's only going to get 2 shots because of the Archer Queen helping out, and that's a forced out log and a high bomb tower. So Hugo trying to make predictions that just are not going to come true. Bats in response, and none of the wall breakers are going, and this is a lot of pressure on the board. Miner in the back. Mighty Miner is going to walk back, so then that might not be a problem for the Mortar as well. This is a phenomenal set of interactions for Audriel. Audriel completely blows this game wide open.
That was disgusting. Miner in the back of the tower. Usually you want to do that play when you have counter pushing units. But in this situation, he used it to pull the Mighty Miner all the way back, allowing the Mortar to just lock straight on the tower. Tower down. GG's. We're 1-1 in this best of 3, ladies and gentlemen. You can see the decks played previously on your screen right now. None of these cards can be repeated. It makes a lot of interesting interactions. We're going to see some interesting decks for this game 3. And... all the marbles are on the line.
And a lot of these, I think all 4 decks that have been used have been fairly quick cycles. So we have Hog, and it's not reloading for me, so I won't actually know. But I'm pretty sure all of them have been pretty quick cycle. So right here, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some pretty heavy, tanky decks. Mother Witch plus Fireball, and we have E-Giant on Audriel's end. So a lot heavier on Audriel's side for sure.
Looks like you're absolutely right. We got a E-Giant versus RG. kind of deck going on right now. Really nice tornado here from Adriel, preventing the bomber from going down, also preventing the king activation. And he goes for the gold 9, the ops lane. This is a play I would never think of, but Hugo is out of elixir like you talked about. Heavy decks, no 1 elixir card to stop that gold 9 dash, and he's getting all the way to tower before the Zappies can come down, taking it down to 2102.
Yeah, it's so fun to watch the awareness of some of these players, because right there, I would not recognize. I mean, I might play the Golden Knight at the bridge, but I'm not doing it for the right reasons. I want to see him run fast and try to make it to the tower, not because I know that my opponent only has 2 elixir and they need 4 in order to place a card. So great recognition from Adriel right there, and that is so much damage to be giving up when you're the E-Giant player, because your opponent has the Fisherman, he has the Tombstone. It's kind of hard to get to the tower, especially because of the Zappies as well. So any sort of damage is great damage when you're the E-Giant player.
Absolutely. I think we saw this same exact matchup happen twice yesterday, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. Usually, E-Giant should beat Royal Giant decks, but we've seen everyone use this specific variation where you have a building in it. Usually RG decks don't have a building, and you have the Fisherman, but you also have the Zappies. Zappy's a great counter to the E-Giant, a triple counter, as well as a kind of a tornado bait in a way. Because if you go Zappies, a lot of the time your opponent's going to want to go tornado dash onto that, but you need the tornado for the Fisherman as well, or else it's going to be a nice king activation a lot of the time. Tornado comes out here, but it's kind of unnecessary and late. Kind of a big mistake from Adriel there.
Yeah, I was not a huge fan of that from Adriel, just because even if it did tornado, and even if in some crazy world it didn't start going for the Tombstone, it still would have died. It had 1.5 HP on the E-Giant side, so just a very unnecessary play and an uncommon mistake that we don't often see. This is a lot of pressure. Is it going to force out the dash from the Golden Knight? It is not, so great defense right there from Adriel, and he's getting these counter pushes going. That's what we need to be seeing. If you're the E-Giant, you get the nice defense, and then you attack, and we're seeing that right here.
Here comes the tornado.
Wow.
The dash hits the Fisherman, hits the Mother Witch all the way to the tower. E-Giant gets 1 shot as well. Hugo goes with a little bit of a panic, arrows in the defense, but the bomber does not get hit. Fireball goes down, but another Phoenix to the bridge. This is brutal, unrelenting pressure from Adriel.
Yeah, and you can see him start to smile. I think he thinks that this game is not necessarily locked up, but he is in prime position to be able to walk away with this. He has done such a great job of applying pressure with these E-Giants at the bridge, but not getting overly aggressive, forcing Hugo to stack and not be able, because a lot of these players, when you have the E-Giant, you're stacking a little bit too much, and it's giving too much fireball value, and he's not having to space out his troops that way. But he's getting Hugo in an uncomfortable cycle where he has to go Mother Witch and Zappies on the board at the same time when his opponent had Golden Knight plus NATO. So that is so tough for him, because, I mean, it's just great recognition once again by Adriel of just knowing his opponent's cycle and his elixir count.
Speaking of that, looks like not only is he going to be changing his micro ideas, but he's changing his macro gameplay, just setting up for some good defense right now. This is a really good time to RG on the left-hand side. No Gold 9 cycle, but the tornado along with a second Phoenix kind of just cleans everything up. Fisherman gonna do a decent job on the defense here, but you know, defense is not the main issue for Hugo right now. He needs damage, and looks like Adriel is the only one getting that right now.
Yep, and right here, 25 seconds left. This is gonna be his final push right here. RG plus Skeleton King. Skeleton King going to activate Fisherman plus, I mean, will this be enough to even get a shot on top of the tower? It is, but that's not enough. You needed a little bit more than that. A great game from Adriel, just dominant performance in games 2 and games 3. And he was struggling, but it did not matter. What a great game, and it just has so much to do with recognition of opponent's elixir and opponent's cycle. He was in so many uncomfortable spots in that game 3.
Yeah, like you said, great recognition, but also just the calm and collected attitude, just really helping out with that sort of thing. And here we go, he's just stoic. He expects himself to win, and he's already getting ready for the next match.
Yeah, this is phenomenal to see. Now that Adriel has also qualified, we have Adriel and Sosa and Pedro and Muhammad Light, and all of these players are players that are fun to see get a golden ticket. So I love that we have this as a top 4, and I don't think anybody, I mean, Adriel obviously, and Pedro obviously, okay, I mean, I guess it's the success story of Sosa now that I think about it, but it's still cool. This is a great top 4, and I wouldn't have expected it when this weekend started.
So looking at that replay here, this is what we were talking about. I think that Adriel had the elixir to get that stuff down, but he just decided to kind of give up. And here's the other replay that we really were looking at, you know, the perfect Mighty Miner pull from the Miner, getting the mortar to lock all the way after the Musketeer died. Beautiful gameplay. Heading into game 3, I'm not sure if there's anything of importance, but I guess we'll see that here in a second.
Oh, actually, I really like this play, so I'm so happy that they caught this one. It really just comes down to Hugo spending too much elixir on defense, and I think that has to do with it being fireball arrows instead of fireball bar barrel, where you can bar barrel back and take out the bomber and get value where the Golden Knight can't get the correct dash. Just the arrows, it did nothing in that matchup.
That's a great call out. You're absolutely right. Like the bar barrel we saw in previous matchups there, where the player used the bar barrel to make sure the Golden Knight was not able to dash, if you remember yesterday. So no Golden Knight NATO connections onto the Zappies or anything like that. Arrow's not getting much value at all. Even log would have been more useful, but that's the beauty of game 3 in a duels format. Every single card has to be different. Quick look at the decks here. You know, we went over the game 1. It was pretty simple stuff. Hugo did a great job of kind of controlling the match and chipping away at the drills. Game 2.
Yeah, game 2, it's going to be the story of Miner Mortar versus Miner Bomb Tower. Yes, you have the wall breakers, and yes, they're going to apply a lot of pressure, but Adriel's deck is set up to be able to stop that pressure. He has the goblins, he has the bats, and bats are so valuable in this matchup. Anytime Hugo wants to build a real push, he has to go Miner plus poison or wall breakers plus poison. Otherwise, the bats are cleaning it up every single time, or the mortar's cleaning it up every single time. So as long as Adriel applies pressure, which obviously he knows how to do super well, it really looked like a close game, but it just looked like Adriel was setting himself up for success. He got the Miner in the back, yes, but that's because the previous 4 plays, he was setting himself up for that. He was defending cheaply so that way he could get that final good push.
I was just looking at the decks here, and did Hugo use bar barrel in game 1?
Yeah, Hugo used it with the drill tornado deck.
So no bar barrel, no log. That's why we're seeing the arrows here in this RG deck. That one card made all the difference, really. Even the log would have been nice to just push back E-Giants and have good defense. Arrows more expensive and getting less value.
Yeah, just because it takes out the bomber, it just nothing else gets affected. The Phoenix Egg, I guess you can try and use that for value. So just an unnecessary card in that matchup. And yeah, that's the beauty of duels. That's why it's so fun to watch every single time.
You know, talking about duels, guys, it's interesting to note that Hugo has one of the lower use rates overall throughout this competition of Tornado. You're talking about this kind of interesting Tornado placements early on in the game. Only a 28% use rate of Tornado throughout this Season 3 of CRL, compared to a 45% use rate overall for players who are in the top 16. So just a little note, he did end up winning that game, obviously, but you know, you see how sometimes maybe someone is stretched to things they don't usually use a lot. My guess here is that Hugo probably doesn't lean on Tornado much in his normal ladder decks compared to other spells, and we may have seen some of the result there. And, you know, speaking of results, boys, let's go ahead and take a look at our bracket at the moment, because we are now down to 4, as you mentioned. And up next, it'll be a couple of minutes here as we let these players go ahead and prepare themselves for their next matchup. Sosa and Adriel playing for a spot in the lower bracket finals. One goes home, one goes on, and then they'll have to wait and figure out, are they playing against Mohamed Light in that lower bracket final or playing against Pedro in our match that will come up right after that one. But Sosa, Adriel up next. Guys, I want to take it back to the conversation I was just starting here for a second. This Tornado question, obviously duels stretch players a little bit more, But that seems like a pretty significant variance where the rest of the field is playing Tornado 45% of the time in their match play, and we're seeing a 28% use rate out of Hugo. Juicy, obviously a lot of the decks that you run being an E-Giant main have Tornado in them. Does that surprise you at all to see that Hugo had that card involved in his deck sets so rarely?
Honestly, it is surprising. There's a lot of talk recently about a potential Tornado nerf. Tornado is just the most creative card in Clash Royale. You can use it to pull stuff in the opposite lane. You can use it to activate your own King Tower. You can use it in combination with splash cards. You can use it in even ways that we saw Audriel use the Miner in that last game. You can pull stuff backwards in order to get a Mortar or an Expo lock in the tower. It's just a card that's so versatile. And to see only 20% usage rate for Hugo, that might be part of the reason or part of the things that are holding him back from getting a golden ticket.
Well, let's go ahead and see people who are still in the hunt for a golden ticket and see how versatile our picks were here. And we are staying completely down the line. Yes, we all hit the L with our pick of Mugi early on, but now we all got match number 2 right, and here we are into our next matchup. All 3 of us picking Adriel. Josh, I obviously it's 3 of us picking Adriel and none of us picking Sosa. But I feel like that doesn't represent how close this matchup might actually be on paper with what Sosa's shown us so far this weekend.
I mean, I'll say it again. I love Sosa's deck choices. I think not a lot of players are using Hog, Valk, Goblins, Bats in hopes that they get the one matchup against Rascal's Graveyard. Like, that is crazy to see somebody go so all out. I mean, yes, it's going to be a solid enough matchup against a lot of different decks, but really, I mean, it's not even that great of a matchup because Juicy was talking about the Snowball versus Log. So Sosa just is mind-boggling to watch, and I'm realizing that because I'm not casting, I just get to sit back and watch because he kind of stresses me out. It's not like you really see what he does in too many other players.
Well, Juicy, you know, I've seen some people talking a little bit about Sosa opening up with Hog quite a bit here. I don't know if you know who Adriel is working with on this one. I believe we said earlier that maybe it's also Jebba's for these matchups, but you got to imagine they're ready for that type of repetition.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe it is Jebba's. That is what I heard from Boss CR when I was out in LA, but I guess I could be wrong. Sosa not going to the Hog, going to the RG deck we've seen so much of. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes. I think that, like you said, Sosa can be pretty predictable. Adriel, with a great coach behind him, should be good. But already game 1, starting off very poorly for Adriel. Sosa realizing he's up some elixir by keeping that Mother Witch alive from the Miner and kind of pushing for some nice damage.
A lot of damage early on here. Huge chunks out of that right-hand tower, courtesy of the Royal Giant, and still an elixir and a half lead for Sosa here in the first 90 seconds. So if there's any way you wanted to start this matchup, Sosa just got it done exactly how you draw it up.
Yeah, and you know, I was just talking about, okay, maybe Adriel can get a good matchup here based off Sosa's predictability, but this is very unpredictable from Sosa, and he's got a very nice matchup here. He's got the Mother Witch, best counter to the bats in the game. He's got a bunch of swarm stuff. Skelly King, Zappies, plus the Tombstone, whereas Adriel doesn't have a great way to deal with that. Not to mention just Sosa having so many counters to the Prince here.
And also, when you're talking about drawing up these matchups, Sosa, when running RG, has run the Monk variant significantly. Almost every single time he's run Royal Giant, it's been one of the Monk versions. He has very, very rarely, I think only one time this entire season, run the Skeleton King version that we're seeing here. So, bit of a juke by Sosa in this very important matchup.
Absolutely. Great King Tower activation from Sosa there, using the Fisherman and also protecting his Zappies. And here comes the huge counter push. No Mother Witch, able to lock on these bats, so a decent defense, but a lot of damage coming through. And, you know, we've seen it yesterday a little bit, but sometimes this Miner deck has a hard time of breaking through, but it does connect right now with this Prince before the Fisherman has a chance to pull.
That's a huge connection for him. And, you know, you talk about being unpredictable. I don't know how often we've seen this Miner Wallbreakers deck played by Adriel. So obviously it's very popular in the meta, but definitely not one of the ones that he's been leaning throughout this competition. So as we get deep into it, both players trying to sidestep their opponents a little bit. That Prince in very deep, Barb Barrel and Mother Witch will turn it the opposite direction. So here we go, Juicy. We're in the final minute 40. Slight lead for Sosa. What does he need to do to secure the victory from this stage going forward?
He needs to just have some better defense. These Princes should not be as big of an issue as they are currently. And as long as he does that, he has the big spell. Adriel doesn't. So he should be able to continue to keep this damage advantage. The other big thing is if you can get one good Mother Witch connection onto some bats, that might instantly spell a victory here with like 5 piggies spawning in potentially.
And Miner does go get the Mother Witch off the board, but not before the Miner stays on just long enough to go full pig here. Prince, Royal Ghost, Ewiz trying to slow down this Royal Giant. Fireball onto the Ewiz will disrupt that defense. RG goes ahead and gets 2 big-time shots, 796 to 1886. Sosa in control. Can he maintain it?
Notice how every single time Sosa plays Zappies, Adriel goes for Miner and arrows on it. That way, the Miner's not getting any value chipping away. And, I mean, it's not like Adriel has another choice either. The arrows are the only spell in this deck. And like I said, there's just too much Swarm. The Mother Witch, the Zappies, everything. It's just disgusting to see. But, you know, Sosa playing very well and capitalizing on all of those things.
And that should be locked down sufficiently here in game number 1. Sosa with a phenomenal deck pick here. Again, not entirely sure who's working with Sosa over on his side of things, but whether he's deck picking himself or has a coach he's working with, this was a very nice one to avoid the sniping of his opponent in that powerful Shot Kalalis team.
Absolutely. You know, perfect deck pick there. Maybe that's why we've seen such a resurgence in that Skelly King RG deck. I mean, there's been so much Mega Knight Prince used. It kind of would make sense based on a bit of a in-tournament meta shift there.
And just a nice little connection to open up, plus some chip. Here we go. Hog action in the opposite direction. Monk will not get the reflection on the bomb tower. Doesn't matter though. Hog will still get some very good damage here as that Monk is distracting, and Sosa fires right back to open up this game.
I'm going to quickly point out the huge mistake Adriel made there by playing his bomb tower 1 tile up too high. That one misplacement made it so the Ops Lane tower was not able to help attack the Hog Rider, and that's why he was so healthy as he made it to that Princess Tower, taken down to 1743.
And both guys with the same idea. Inferno Tower out to work on the Hog EQ, and Adriel lacking the building and cycle, so goes and takes a ton of damage. And this might be enough that Sosa has this all sewn up here with just 80 seconds played.
This is fascinating to watch. I can't believe Sosa is looking to take Adriel down 2-0 here. It's possible to come back with a huge mistake from Sosa, but Adriel, you know, it's really tough to break through the Inferno Tower. The Inferno Tower, a great pick here to have a huge advantage in this mirror matchup, just because the Giant Skelly almost gonna get 0 value.
So at this point, it feels like, sure, go ahead, play a Hog, but the Hog almost feels like it's more about making Adriel spend some defensive elixir than it is about trying to get on tower.
Absolutely. I'm interested to see what Adriel's last card is here. Maybe it's just Archer Queen. Yeah, that's the other great part of this deck pick from Sosa. The Monk, best counter the Archer Queen in the game. Not to mention just a little bit more consistent 3-card cycle, as we saw earlier in this match. That's why Sosa was able to outcycle his opponent's building so easily.
Here we go, final 34 regulation, and that EQ will be sufficient, and it looks like we have our top 3, unless something goes disastrous right here in this push. It looks like a clean 2-0 sweep here for Sosa. You do have to stop that Giant Skeleton. Goblins up to the task. Archers to clean
Yeah.
things up. And what a weekend for this phenomenal player to come out and do some work like this. And I did find out, and I've seen him talking about it a lot on Twitter this weekend. And now I absolutely remember Game Saver, the coach who's working with Sosa this time, and very, very happy with the deck picks. And honestly, the creativity out of these picks seem to be benefiting Sosa tremendously.
Yeah, fantastic picks. You know, that last push looked scary, but we saw how much value the Inferno Tower got. Killing one Giant Skelly and the Hog. Second Giant Skelly, easily taken out by some Archers and some Goblins. Quick 2-0 sweep. I mean, I don't even know what to say. I'm kind of speechless. Like I said, I thought RGL was going to make it and get this golden ticket this month. Sosa, kind of a huge underdog story. I mean, yeah, like I said, I'm speechless there.
Well, this one, I mean, this first pick is phenomenal here, right? And we talk about there are some coaches who come out and just give you, you know, they quickly look at some games that are out there and they give you some decks. But it really looks like this was like some intentional play. Not running that version of Royal Giant very much at all throughout this competition, makes that choice here in the first game. And then this version of Hog EQ with Inferno Tower. Another solid pick here, and maybe Azrael got caught a little flat-footed, a little overextended, but Sosa and his coach putting together a really, really nice run of picks throughout today. And look, no matter what happens from this top three moving forward, Sosa coming into the day, top 16, stacking a ton of points. And now he's really putting himself in a great spot for the second half of this 2023 year with the points he'll be walking away with today.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? Maybe he doesn't win this golden ticket, but the points he's accumulating is going to be so helpful for him. Looking at game one here, I mean, we talked about it. This Mega Knights deck, it's great in certain situations, but when you're going against a bunch of Swarm like Goblin Hut or this deck where it's just Tombstone and Mother Witch, it's almost impossible to break through because you only have one spell in the deck.
And here we go into game number 2, Hog EQ versus Hog EQ. Inferno Tower playing a fairly nice role in here. And, you know, there was one moment, and I have to go back and watch this match afterwards, where we saw them both drop Hogs at the bridge, Adriel dropping the Ice Spirit with it, and then it felt like Adriel just had 0 for the Hog once it got past the bridge, and that was the big chunk of damage early that kind of shut this thing down. Very, very big moment that changed the game entirely.
Absolutely. I think maybe part of the reason he did go for that play was because he realized my guards and my bomb tower out of cycle because of my misplaced bomb tower in the starting play. So maybe he was trying to go for the Hog, force out that Inferno Tower, force out the Elixir. Sosa, on the other hand, had enough for both. And that just, like you said, put Adriel in a spot where he's completely out. Maybe if he saved that Elixir for like an Archer Queen plus Ice Spirit, he could have gotten away and continued on that match to try and find a way to come back. But at that point, the damage was done, 400 HP. In most of these high-level games, that just means game over.
And yeah, game over very early indeed here. Josh, thoughts on the matchup that we just watched? Obviously, all three of us got it wrong. We're picking Adriel in this one. Sosa, very nice performance here.
Yeah, so game one, there's not a lot to talk about. It just comes down to matchups. MK versus RG and Golem is a loss. And so Sosa played well, but it didn't really require that much skill. It just, you stack everything and set up tombstones and you win. So game one was phenomenal. And then obviously game two, it just forced out mistakes, missed bomb tower, not enough elixir. Just really solid gameplay overall. And I would like to credit, I don't know if you guys have found out the analyst so far. It is Games Saver. So I was taking a look at his Twitter, and I always love when analysts take the credit. They take the heat for the losses. And so yesterday when he lost he lost to Pedro. And so on Twitter he said, yeah, we lost to Pedro because as an analyst, I didn't put in enough prep. My opponent had, what was it? I gave E-Giant when Zappies and Fishermen were open. So he took the heat for the loss instead of giving it to his player. And as a player, you have to love that when your analyst is just backing you up like that. I love seeing that from analysts.
Well, we'll get to see some more of that combination in a little bit, but right now we move on to maybe the most consequential matchup of the day here. I know that we're not to the Golden Ticket final, but this does feel like it might decide the golden ticket in many ways. If Pedro wins against Mohamed Light, suddenly he's now just has to wait and see if Mohamed Light beats Sosa. Mohamed Light, of course, if he wins, turns our lower bracket final into the golden ticket final. So this is one that's going to decide a whole lot here between our defending world champion and a guy who's looking like a potential world beater here in Pedro for our upper bracket finals. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that our picks are pretty well aligned. I haven't seen our picks yet. Josh, Juicy, did either of you pick Pedro on this matchup?
I did not. Went with Mohamed Light. You know, like you said, if Mohamed Light does lose, it's actually not very beneficial for Sosa. If you're in the losers bracket, you want Mohamed Light to win out so that you have a very nice chance of getting the golden ticket. And obviously, you don't want to play against the world champ either. But it's really just hard to pick against him at this point.
And looking like you're going the same way here, Josh, with Mohamed Light as the pick here for this winners bracket final.
Yeah, I personally predict Mohamed Light to win 4 or 5 times throughout these monthly finals. I just think he's so unstoppable right now. The win rate is not even that inflated. I personally, as a viewer, I've seen a 90% win rate, so I don't know how his win rate is that low, but it just speaks whenever he finds a loss, he still wins the set 2-1.
Well, we'll of course see if he does find that, and as we all know that even if Moto's gone to the lower bracket, that's no guarantee you'll stop him because he's also a lower bracket god. So we'll see either way how it goes. Let's talk about keys to victory here for Pedro. He's been great throughout this competition. He's been great throughout this year. There's a reason we're calling him the leading candidate for Rookie of the Year. There's no surprises. He's currently number 1 on the leaderboards for not counting Mugi and Pandora. Josh, what does Pedro need to do to secure the victory here against Mo?
Well, I'm going to say it. I think Pedro rivals, sort of. I think he rivals him in skill level when it comes to just the micros. So Pedro, he doesn't have to switch up his gameplay. He doesn't have to switch up his decks. I think he's just good enough to win with what he's good at. And that's not something we often get to say about Mohamed Light opponents, but right here, clean defense. Oh wait, I'm looking at Mohamed Light's. I mean, still clean defense from Pedro, but yes, I believe he's just good enough in general. And right there, already a connection with the wall breakers. Nobody else in the world gets that wall breakers connection except Pedro.
So here we go. Early fireworks between these two. 24-53 on the left-hand side for Mohamed Light. Pedro with the lead to that 29-69 on the bottom left-hand lane. Both going with Drill. Different looks, though. Drill wall breakers here for Pedro versus Drill Cycle from Mohamed Light. Josh, we don't see a ton of Drill wall breakers right now.
Yeah, we saw a lot of players use the old Inferno Tower with, I believe, oh man, I forgot the entire deck because I just didn't like it. It's the one with the Fire Spirit and I believe the Bandit as well. So I like this variation compared to the other ones right here. Clean defense once again, and this time it's actually from Pedro himself. So I really like that, and we should see the wall breakers kite, and we absolutely do. I mean, Pedro's just putting on a clinic, and yes, we're only 2 minutes in, but everything he has done so far has been with purpose, trying to get the elixir advantage, trying to just, I mean, 1 elixir advantage every single time he defends, and then wall breakers as well. It's just, he's doing what he needs to do.
First 2 minutes almost up. Double elixir getting ready to flow here as full Drill Fireball push. An interesting placement there that you saw Pedro going for the back of the tower rather than going right for the guards.
Yeah, just trying to get a little bit of chip damage and just switching up his placements. That's a lot of players aren't making that play, so I really like what I saw right there. Our Ice Spirit coming down and will be able to lock onto the Bomb Tower. Ice Spirit plus Bomb Tower, not, okay, it is going to be enough, but right now, he has the tower down to 1989, and Mohamed Light has not shown any signs of stopping him. This constant, relentless pressure, plus the Inferno Tower on defense, is just cleaning up so much. He is not able to stop this Inferno Tower.
Guard gets in front of the Mighty Miner. Big moment here for Mohamed Light as he puts a lot of damage on the right-hand side. Musketeer has to be dealt with and is picked up by the High Mighty of Pedro as we go into sudden death overtime. Mo narrowing the gap with significant damage in both lanes.
Musketeer going to lock on to the bomb tower, and again, a very clean fireball. This timing, it's crazy to say, but Pedro might be one of the best fireball players in the world. His knockback with his fireballs is always so impeccable when it comes to the timing.
Well, and he's been going like that full 8 elixir push consistently, and now you see him here varying it up. So we've seen different placements with the fireballs. This time now just using fireball to clean out the bomb tower on the back end. So certainly some creativity out of Pedro here right now, but a nice push the opposite direction. Late guards to avoid the fireball of Mohamed Light. Still the lead right now for Pedro, about 800 HP.
And the log will come out, but because of the wall breakers being placed in the way he placed it, it forces out the log early, and so he gets the tower down to 1140. And again, right here, Inferno Tower placed, and it's going to stay alive long enough where Mohamed Light's drill, if it's placed in the front, the Inferno Tower will be able to take it out again. So I wouldn't be shocked if we see the drill placed off to the side, and that's exactly what we're going to see. But right now, again, he's just cleaning it up way too easily.
A little early with that fireball. Mo adjusting his timing with the guards here, recognizing some of the sequences that Pedro's throwing down. Mighty Miner right there for those goblins. Good fireball in from Mo. That should get some extra damage, and it does. That's the most significant moment here so far for Mohamed Light. Has put this back very, very close. But again, a goblin gets on and stabs for Pedro opposite direction. 556, 1107 now. Fireball will be in, 20 seconds left.
And again, one of the goblins is, and Mohamed Light is just applying so much pressure. Pedro has to do something about it. He finally gets the drill off. He's been using the logs on offense, and you have to be able to just figure out a way to stop it. He finally does. 6 seconds left. A great game from Pedro. Just constant pressure throughout. Mohamed Light did a great job at the end with all the drills on top of the tower, but it came down to the first 4 minutes. Pedro dominated, and that's 4 minutes of gameplay where somebody is able to dominate Mohamed Light, which I haven't seen in a while.
That was phenomenal gameplay here from Pedro. We talked about the pressure from the wall breakers. They were certainly critical. Nice against the drill as well, and here goes Pedro just opening up with a little Fire Spirit. Fire Spirit was the spirit for so long, and Josh, it does feel like it's taken a back seat to Electro and Ice Spirit as of late.
That's right. I am kind of surprised. I haven't really recognized that, but you're absolutely correct. And I don't even choose Fire Spirit in my Mega Draft battles anymore. It just feels like Ice Spirit and Electro Spirit just get so much value that the Fire Spirit isn't getting right now.
So some minor control here from Mohamed Light. Second time, I believe, maybe second or third time seeing Bats today. So that's another card that we're seeing get mixed in a bit more as we just kind of slow things down here after the first minute. Some blows landed both directions, 2683 to 2807. And both players just catching their breath. And now Mo just cycles some goblins at the bridge, wanting a response out. And there it comes.
Okay, I was wondering what his final card was going to be. It's going to be Royal Hog's Earthquake Cycle going against Snowball Mortar Miners. So Mohamed Light going to try and get a little bit of pressure with the mortar throughout the game, but it's going to be hard to get past. He has a very quick cycle. Bomb Tower plus Earthquake is always going to be able to clean up these mortars throughout this game, at least before we hit that triple elixir mark and late in overtime. And wow.
Oh, my word. That's a huge, huge misplay. Pedro going way down low. Mohamed Light recognizing it. GG.
Wow, I have not seen misplaced. I mean, and he's already giving up. I mean, you can't do anything at this point. You're going against Mohamed Light. He's going to be defending way too strongly. But that is shocking. I have not seen just the that kind of mistake in a while.
That was absolutely fascinating. I know hopefully we can pull some of those back here during the replay, but just completely stumbled did Pedro in that moment, and now he went from feeling pretty darn good to back against the wall in a game 3 against Mohamed Light.
This is where it comes down to mental fortitude, and this is why I love ladder players. A lot of the ladder players who grind so much, they spend 8 hours a day, the final week, just grinding, trying to get, just 20 games in a row where they're playing well. you can lose this weight and still come back from it. A lot of these ladder players have the mental fortitude to do that. So we'll see in this game 3 which Pedro shows up.
Archers from Pedro. Golden Knight opposite direction, and interesting construction here from both players.
We've seen the mortar deck with this, so I wouldn't be shocked if we see that again. And there we go. Skarmy at the bridge. Inferno Dragon, there's only 2 skeletons left, but the skeletons are going to be able to distract the Inferno Dragon long enough for it to get value on top of it, but it will stay alive. But the tower, oh wow.
Graveyard
Should be fine.
freeze for Mohamed Light. He's had success with this, quite obviously. And what a crazy and interesting pick from Mohamed Light and Jebas here in this game 3 moment.
Inferno Dragon Graveyard freeze going against Mortar Skarmy Archers. I mean, the last cards for Mohamed Light, he should have NATO, so he will be able to get damage with his graveyards. But I mean, we could be looking at a game where he only graveyards one more time throughout the match. Sometimes that's what you need to do with these graveyard decks.
And that bowler there just not going to let Skarmy get out and protect against the Inferno Dragon early. Very nicely placed there by Pedro to get to the outside, but that Inferno Dragon still going to be an absolute problem, so Skeleton King has to come down. Will get loaded up, but will also give up a ton of damage, and the arrows do have to come out.
Yeah, a great little mind game situation for Pedro and Mohamed Light. Does he want to use the arrows early? Can he afford those kind of situations are always so fun to see which player bites first. And right there, Pedro, he waited, he delayed it. Yes, you're going to give up a lot of damage, but it's more important to play it late than it is to play it early, because if you play it early, the game can be over just like that.
The archers from Pedro there, very nice to clear off the defense and get the cannon cart to connect on that right-hand tower, and that's why you're seeing the lead right now for Pedro, 2095 to 2207. Championship stuff from these two players to see who goes to our May championship.
The archers are so important to win the bridge battles, but he can't use them up top because the baby dragon is going to snipe it, and he needs it for the graveyard. We are going to see the arrows come out, but that is so much damage. Every single time he goes in with a graveyard, he's getting 600 damage, and that's just not what we're expecting when Pedro has the archers, the flying machine, the Skarmy, the Skeleton King, and yet he's still getting damage.
Two flying machines down. The prediction NATO was trying to take care of the Skarmy. Can they get past the E-Wiz? No, a great E-Wiz from Mohamed Light, and you see maybe a look of surprise there on Pedro's face. He thought that second flying machine was going to get him a lot more damage than it did. Instead, he finds himself with 90 seconds and a significant amount of ground to make up to try to be viable in this matchup.
Right there, Miner up top. The Miners and the Skarmies have always been brilliant from Pedro, but right here, Golden Knight dash plus the bowler. I mean, this is a lot of offense coming down the lane. 675, can the bowler get another shot? It doesn't, it just misses the tower.
And here we go, counter push time, 675 remaining on Pedro's right-hand side. Can he find a way? These graveyard freezes have been tremendous for the deck, or at least the concept that won Mohamed Light the World Championship last year. We know he knows what he's doing here with 40 seconds left.
And you would think that the flying machines would get so much value in this matchup, but it comes down to Mohamed Light applying so much pressure, getting the Golden Knight down the lane. Great freezes right here, 2200 HP to 675, and he still has to worry about the right side. These bowlers plus the E-Wizzes plus the baby dragons have cleaned up everything so nicely.
Flying machines on the tower.
On the left.
NATO comes out, Miner in. Mohamed Light has to go defensive freeze, Skarmy behind. This is a potential big moment here. Can Pedro find a way through? Arrows trying to clean. Is that flying machine gonna make it? Inferno Dragon picks up Mohamed Light, shuts the door after giving a glimmer of hope to Pedro, and now he will once again go into the winner's side of our monthly final.
On paper, you should not be able to control the match. Your opponent should be able to stack mortars. He should be able to go in with a miner in the back. You don't know where to use your NATO. But Mohamed Light's separation of troops and aggressiveness with the Graveyard without overextending is unreal. Nobody else plays that deck the way he plays it.
And it really felt like Pedro was going to steal that one there at the end. There was so much going on, so difficult to hold off. And even just a half second, we talked about this yesterday. The number of games Mohamed Light won yesterday by, under a second of time. Those little tiny calculations, and he gets it done here. Let's take a look at some of the action here. And this was game number 1. Pedro playing a great game and a solid matchup. And it looked from here like Pedro was just going to be off to the finish line.
Yeah, he couldn't have played a better game 1. Yes, he gave up a lot of aggressiveness to Mohamed Light in triple elixir, but he was okay with that. It's okay because he was able to go in with a drill when his opponent didn't have log. And right here, I have not seen this mistake be made in forever in competitive matchups. You think the miner is going to go one way, it does not. And that's just such a crazy way to lose. And with this match, I love this deck from Pedro just because, everything gets value and it's on paper, it's supposed to do so well. But a lot of the time, it just feels like you can't finish off games. You can't get that HP that you need in those triple elixir moments.
I mean, look at how close it was for Mohamed Light to get to 4 elixir, to drop that Inferno Dragon to pick up that final flying machine. That's just complete insanity. And again, razor thin margins. And now Mohamed Light has turned our lower bracket final into the golden ticket final because he's already won 1. He's already technically won 2. The second one went to Pandora. And now Pedro has to regroup and beat Sosa if he wants to get this golden ticket. Sosa now has to be ecstatic because now instead of having to beat Mohamed Light and then beat Pedro, he just has to beat Pedro to get that World Finals trip.
It's just so weird to think about it, celebrating that your opponent in the world or in the championship game is going to be Mohamed Light. You have to beat him twice in order to win $20,000, and you're celebrating. I will never get over the fact that people are happy when Mohamed Light is in the winner's final.
Yeah, it's completely insane. So this was game number 1. The wall breakers were a critical factor here, and let's go ahead and jump into game number 2, which this one, you talk about the mistake, and it was just a complete kind of brain meltdown from Pedro. Now, to be fair, I think he recovered very nicely going into game number 3, but man, this was just one of those ones where it kind of let it go. And then game 3 here, how many times has Graveyard Freeze been run in CRL this year on any level, anywhere? So you want to talk about cooking here, Jebas and Mo cooking up something brilliant, and you talk about the gameplay side of it. You said those flying machines should be an absolute menace, but the control, the use of the Baby Dragon, use of the Inferno Dragon, use of the freezes, just so many things done well by Mohamed Light to get that win.
And I just don't know what Pedro should have done, because at the end of the day, it's pretty easy to look at a matchup and say, oh, this player has this matchup, you can win just by doing this. Right here, Pedro, it feels like he should have the matchup, but you can't stack mortars because then your opponent gets too aggressive. You can't stack archers because then he freezes. There's just so many things that he should be able to do, but he can't.
And that's where that creativity comes into play. And as we get number 3 back with us here, Juicy, talk to us about this set that we just watched, because it looked like Pedro was just off to it. And here we go with, once again, Mo in the championship matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple things that could have gone differently, but I think the biggest thing was, like that mistake that you guys pointed out in game 2. Maybe in game 3, he could have played some defensive mortars. That's one thing that we didn't really see much of. Defensive mortar or defensive expo can be really valuable when your opponent doesn't have a big spell.
So here we go, taking a look at the bracket here. Mohamed Light with wins over Lord Seb, Adriel, Pedro, and now just waiting to see if he's going to secure that bag one more time and make it 3 in a row on the lower bracket final. Pedro had a interesting run here with the win over Hugo. Already a 2-0 win in this tournament against Sosa. So you got to keep in mind that he does have that advantage over Sosa going into the overall competition, going into this final matchup. and then Sosa. You got to factor into account the confidence of having beaten Faust, Mugi, and Adriel. Huge wins there. So now we go down and run it back between these two one more time and see if Sosa can find a way past this very, very talented player. And, I guess we got to get our picks need to get in here pretty soon. I have to imagine that a lot of people are picking Pedro. Are any of you guys picking Sosa?
I think that we're across the board for Pedro here. And it makes sense, like you said, Pedro beat Sosa earlier. Sosa's been doing really good. I mean, like I said, every single time I think I've picked against Sosa, and he's proven me wrong every single time. And the deck picks we saw earlier from him have been fantastic as well. Quickly, guys, I just want to reiterate, this is the golden ticket matchup, ladies and gentlemen. Whoever wins this lower bracket finals wins the golden ticket because Muhammad Light already has one. We will see the game played between first and second to see who gets the monthly finals $16,000 grand prize. But yeah, I think that's just important to point out.
Very important to point out. And also important to point out here is that while Pedro beat Sosa a nice little 2-0 sweep yesterday, Sosa got a 2-1 win over Pedro, I believe, in the Swiss bracket stage of this month's competition. So yeah, they are split between the two of them, and now we just have to wait for who's got the decks ready to go and are cooking properly, and who's got the nerves handled. As now you're playing, we've seen, and look at this, we're seeing a little bit of I don't know if that's maybe some show of the nerves here from Sosa, who's been so stoic throughout this, but this is very different than every game he's played so far, Josh.
Yeah, you can have 1,000 individual achievements, but none of them are going to be able to compare to a monthly finals golden ticket. Everything that he's done before, I mean, you use that experience in order to make yourself thrive in these situations, but it's a whole different ball game when you're actually playing for the golden ticket.
Absolutely. Heading to game one. This is the golden ticket match, ladies and gentlemen. Two rookies, by the way. I don't think we've ever seen either of these players make it to a World Finals before. So this is kind of like making history right now. We have Sosa at the bottom of your screen with the Golden Knight drill, Magic Archer kind of bridge spam deck. You have Pedro with the Monk RG here for game one.
Overall, Pedro just using the RG deck, but it looks like he swapped in Mega Minion. Is this the first time that we've seen Mega Minion swapped into this RG deck this weekend?
You might absolutely be right there. I'm not 100% sure. Mega Minion did receive a small hit speed buff not too long ago, along with the Phoenix death damage nerf. But more importantly, or more like, oh my god, the tornado! The tornado! I had to pause for a second. The tornado on the Monk here, pulling it back, getting the Giant Skelly to connect to the tower. That was ridiculous.
Yeah, that's great. But also, this is just going to be a phenomenal counter push for Pedro. It's going to be giving up a lot of damage, but this is where it gets really weird. So yes, you're getting a lot of damage. Yes, you got a Giant Skeleton to the tower, but I don't know how well this deck works in two tower situations. You almost can't afford to do that, even with the knowledge that your Giant Skeleton gets to the tower. Two tower situation, he might struggle with the King Tower helping out for the drills.
That's a really good point. I definitely think that Pedro with the Royal Giants in the pocket can be huge, has a big advantage if this does go to double towers. On the other hand, Sosa maybe up a little bit of elixir after the interaction as well. So if he can continue this and use this for his advantage, or basically make it so this, if he can make it so this isn't a tower down situation, I think this is a positive net gain for him.
Yeah, and now that we're heading into overtime, it's totally okay as long as he doesn't give that up. So 1076 to 1136, and I mean, it's just the battle of no big spell versus big spell. So can he get the value with these monks, with these fishermen? I'd like to see just fishermen cycled from Pedro because it gets so much value in this matchup. Everything just needs to be placed behind the King Tower, stack as much as you possibly can. Pedro's attacking this exactly how he should.
Yeah, that's a great point. Fisherman gets a lot of value versus everything here. The only way that Sosa can really counteract that is maybe getting the Electroiz to lock onto it, or maybe a Tornado to prevent too much full value. Really good at Monk ability timing from Pedro as well here. Doing a great job of counteracting the Magic Archer. Oh!
And that could just be game. The Fisherman locks onto the Ewiz instead of the Giant Skeleton. The Hunter helping out. 2 Fishermen's on the board. Drill on defense. You never want to see that. And RG plus Drill. Can the RG make it to the tower? 327. 2 fireballs away if he chooses to go that way. But he also could just choose to Monk, activate, and it could be game right there. Sosa not going to play another card. And Pedro up 1-0 for to become the recipient of the golden ticket this month.
One step closer to being a CRL world finalist for Pedro here. I mean, I gotta be excited for him. Sosa's got to win the next 2 games if he wants to get a reverse sweep. And you called it in that match, Josh. That Fisherman was the game breaker. Pulling in that Electro-Wizard, instantly getting the value, connecting for massive damage and winning the game.
Pedro just wants to clean it up, make it a 2-0, make himself not have to worry about that. Pedro in response, he only has 3 elixir. What is he gonna do? This Hog is so much value. The snowball finally comes out, but the Hog's still on the tower. A terrible start for Pedro, especially because we know Pedro uses the miners, the mortars, the wall breakers. He can't really win a game once he's down. And that's exactly what we saw with game number 2 against Mohamed Light. Just too much damage to be giving up early game. And a lot of it comes down. Oh, okay. So Pedro is going to be using the Loon. So he still has a shot to be able to come back. This is a much better situation than he usually is when he gives up early leads.
I'm trying to think what just happened there. Why was Pedro down so much elixir so the Hog got so much value? And I guess maybe part of it is not having the bomb tower in the starting hand. Maybe he got starting handed a little bit. The other issue there was just maybe some over defense versus the Ice Spear on the left. He used 3 elixir archers on that. Everything being said, you're absolutely right. This Giant Skelly Loon deck has the potential to be able to break through and make the comeback that he needs. But looking already like Sosa's taking game 2 here. Very quick and concise Hog connections here.
Well, and this brings up a topic that I've seen on Twitter a lot, and I want to hear your thoughts on the matter. So a lot of people were talking about Miner first play just being a bad play in general.
Interesting.
Do you agree with that? A lot of players are saying it just allows your opponent to set up for a free 3 elixir. Pedro spent 9 elixir, and Sosa only spent Guard's Ice Spirit. Like that is too much elixir to be giving up early game like that.
You're absolutely right, and you know, maybe that's kind of an evolution of CR moment. Maybe people are going to start realizing, especially after the minor crown tower damage nerf, that it's maybe not the best first play here, and it definitely seems like that's the case in this situation.
33 seconds left, going in with the Monk Guards in the middle, not going to allow his opponent to even get off a Loon push is the goal for Sosa. And the cool thing about this, he can place troops in the middle, take the aggro from both players, and he can just have everything hang out on his side if he had chosen to do so. That's not the method of choice for him. And we're going to see a bomb tower that's late. It's not going to matter, I don't think, but it absolutely could.
Snowball, though? He needs 2 more shots in 3 seconds. That's not enough.
Wow.
GG's. Well played to Sosa there. A little bit late on the bomb tower at the end. It got close, but overall solid plays nonetheless. We're heading into game 3, ladies and gentlemen. This is the 3rd and final match to see who gets the golden ticket and gets the guaranteed $20,000 at the CRL World Finals, along with the 2nd place prize from this monthly finals.
And so something to look at. Pedro, I mean, it's something that we can overanalyze, but he used the Earthquake with only leaking 0.1 elixir. He's just starting the next game. I don't know if that shows a good mentality or a poor mentality, but right there, just getting aggressive early on. And Sosa likely going to be using the MK Prince Miner deck. That's not guaranteed, but at this point, 4 cards in, I'm thinking it might be guaranteed.
Yep, Mega Knight Prince at the bottom, Pedro with a Hog Earthquake deck. Miner coming in from Sosa right now, tanking for this Arcane Ice Spear, going to drop along with the Musketeer. I think the biggest thing to mention in this deck is the use of the bats to force out so much elixir. Look at that. Now the bandit connects them right inside just because Pedro had to overcommit on the left with the musketeer because of just not having the correct small spell.
And we see the look of disgust looking away from the screen. I know I've done that to my own gameplay several times, but Musketeer locks onto the tower, getting it down to 22-36. And yes, Sosa got a great first push, but MK can struggle, you know, trying to mix in the offense and defense against these mortar decks. And right there, another mistake. Prince locks on the mortar instead of the Mighty Miner. And instead of being forced to spend, you know, the Archer Queen or the MK in response to the mortar, the mortar just dies just like that. So great situation for Sosa, even though he is giving up another bit of damage with that Hawk.
Like we talked about, these are two, like, not, you know, kind of rookie players, for lack of a better word. And we're seeing the nerves really come out in this match. A lot of mistakes here, a lot of damage coming through. You know, 1386 on the left, 1700 on the right. Sosa needs to clean it up here if he wants to make the comeback to have a chance at this match.
Activating the ability perfectly, taking out all the guards, the mortar, and staying alive for it to take out the musketeer as well and create another response. So great Archer Queen right there. Opposite lane wall breakers pressure, and this is the great thing about these mortar decks. You can just defend the wall breakers with the mortar, and that's okay. Yes, your mortar is only half health, but a lot of the times either your mortar connects or it doesn't, so you don't even need that much health.
Hyper aggressive play. Mega Knight Prince of the Bridge, Hog and Ops lane to pressure while defending. Perfect Ice Spirit plus Musketeer combo, and the Hog gets this shot, and Sosa is out. 0 damage there in that situation. Really good plays from Pedro. I think he's the one really starting to lock in here. And there we go. This is what I talked about when you're playing against a deck without any big spells. Going for the defensive mortar, super useful here. It's just going to get a lot of value in general.
Yeah, that defense was so clean. You have the MK and the Prince on the right side. You only have Elixir for the Musk and the Mighty Miner. You activate the ability. You get enough Elixir for the Ice Spirit. That was a clinic on how you want to defend that. And at this point, it is so difficult for him to get past this defense. He is just locking everything down with gorgeous gameplay. Hog again gets a shot. You can't afford to do that.
Seems like the Hog is always connecting here from Pedro. Playing fantastically on the defense as well, using the Hog Ray to kite everything backwards. Archer Queen, Mega Knight on the cannon bush. This could be decent. The Mighty Miner's out of cycle as well. Let's see what Pedro can do here.
Bats over the top, trying to get value with the Miner on top of the Musketeer, and that is a mistake right there. You cannot afford to go in with a Miner when you don't have the Elixir for the arrows. I've seen that happen way too often with all types of pros all across the board. That is just a mistake you cannot make.
Yeah, especially in this point where you need to make that comeback, you have to have enough Elixir to go for the prediction arrows there.
Wow, and I think this is going to be it. Hog getting to the tower again. You cannot stop it. Pedro with the 2-1, the golden ticket winner, and you see the smile on his face. He knows that one game, that one best of 3 is worth $25,000 right there. You see how happy he is.
I love to see the emotion. I'm so happy for him. Congratulations to Pedro winning the golden ticket. He still has his match versus Muhammad Lights in the winner bracket final. But no matter what happens, Mo Light already has a golden ticket. He is qualified for the Clash Royale League World Finals. Let's go.
I'm like, that kind of rush of emotions is so beautiful to see. It's so pure, and it's seeing that in the community, winning the golden ticket. I will never get over it. I kind of want to set up a YouTube compilation of just players winning golden tickets because it's so beautiful seeing their reactions.
Absolutely beautiful. I mean, let's get into the recap of the games here, guys. Game 1, pretty simple stuff. Game 2, huge RG connections from Pedro. Oh, sorry, this is still game 1. Monk ability also getting lots of value here. Fisherman, like you said, was the game winner.
Yeah, in game number 2, he gave up way too much early damage. He tried going in with the loon pushes. I liked what he was doing, but it comes down to, you know, what the community was saying when I talked about can you use Miner early on, but then also, Pedro, you cannot spend 9 elixir on Miner, arrows, archers for just the guards. It just gets so awkward and you don't have enough, especially because of how tanky your deck is. You need that elixir for those buildings.
Game 3, we saw the use of the mortar defensively and just in general with no big spell options. We saw the Hog Riders always connecting, and it just kind of seems like this Mega Knight Prince deck is kind of falling out of the meta. Mega Knight Prince getting pretty shut down there by the guards, the Ice Spirit Musketeer combos, as well as that Mighty Miner.
Yeah, 6 months ago, I used to vouch for that deck, but now the matchups where it's supposed to win in are you're now losing in it because of the guards, because of the Mighty Miner. Those quick swaps are enough to completely flip it. Game number 3, we saw the 4-card cycle, tower damage, all that, but it comes down to just Pedro just inching his way down the field. Like it was such a good matchup where as long as he plays good defense, which is what he's known for, he gets the victory. Game 1, we saw it. Drill, Giant Skeleton going against RG Fisherman. Kind of a very simplistic way to put it is just make it to double elixir, make it to triple elixir, and then stack as much as you can. Place the Fisherman in the back, you win. And so that's what happened.
And the Monk ability getting so much value here as well versus the Cannon Car and the Magic Archer. Game 2, you know, this matchup on paper, honestly, I feel like Pedro should win this. But like you said, the early game elixir overcommit is what really allowed Sosa to have a huge connection. Using the Monk ability in combination with either Hog Rider or Ram Rider or Royal Giant is detrimental in situations like that. The Monk, when you pop that ability, gets that damage reduction, tanks for forever, allowing the Hog to get so much damage in that early game.
Yeah, I think this Giant Skeleton Balloon deck should also fall out of favor with the players in Clash. I think the MK Miner and the Giant Skeleton Loon just don't have a place. Too many decks are set up where they have Mortar, Ice Spirit building, or building Tornado, or Tornado Ewis. You just cannot get through just defenses in general. I'm surprised that it has so much favor in the meta for these players. Game number 3, again, this is what we were talking about. MK Prince, it's strong, but guards, Ice Spirit, Mighty Miner is stronger. It's too easy for him to defend. And then once the game gets close to the end, that's when we see the onslaught of Hog, Earthquake, Cycle.
Absolutely. You know, Pedro had the arrows for the guards, but a lot of the time, as we saw, just not enough elixir in order to do it. You know, Rich, what do you have to say after that match? Are you excited for Pedro winning that golden ticket? Mike.
On both of these things, man. Bad. You know what? Every once in a while, home production does rear its ugly head. But you know what? I'm here, and I'm here with you guys. I'm plenty excited for Pedro. It's a big win for him. Obviously, a guy you've been looking at as the, you know, I've said it multiple times this weekend. Early rookie of the year candidate. And right now, it seems like he might have that sewn up. We'll see, of course, who else makes their way to World Finals this year. But I mean, it's going to be really hard to top what he's done so far in CRL and beyond in 2023.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Pedro is so exciting. I'm so happy that I'm a fan as of yesterday. I feel like a bandwagon, and I can see why people do it, because cheering on your favorite players and your favorite teams, it's fun when they win. And officially as of today, I'm a bandwagon for Pedro, and all my players are making it to Worlds so far.
Well, so now we have some time to kill before the reset for Pedro. Of course, he has to go ahead and try to beat Mohamed Light twice if he wants to end up adding that extra cash. Of course, I'm sure at this point that would just be icing on the cake. He's secured the bag on the way to he's secured his trip to World Finals, the golden ticket, obviously, with the money for making it there already. And if we look at the prize pool here in just a moment, we can take a look at what's at stake right now. It does, of course, feel like that money going from 10,000 to 16,000. The extra 6,000 is certainly nice. It's nothing to scoff your head at, but it does feel like for Pedro, anything beyond this point, Juicy, is just walking around money after he's made his way to Worlds.
Absolutely. You know, $6,000, it's nothing comparison to the trip to the World Finals, the experience, the bragging rights of being a CRL World Finalist. Like we talked about, just qualifying there, you get an extra 20 grand in your pocket, but there's also a chance to win that $250,000 grand prize. Let's head into the predictions next. I think we all picked the same thing. There it is, Mohamed Light. I mean, it's tough not to pick him. The other thing to think about here, I mean, Josh, tell me about it. Like, how is Pedro's mindset after winning this? Like, do you think that he's got the confidence to try and get this first place prize? Or do you think that maybe it's not as strong anymore and he's just kind of like, you know, he's already taken his win. He's going to lay back a little bit.
Yeah, I think it comes down to he's a ladder player, and I have so much respect for ladder players overall. I think that he fully believes that he can take off the first set and then take off the second set. You're not attacking it as, oh, I have to win 2 sets against Mohamed Light. You're looking at it as, let me win the first set, let me play well, let me do what I can, and if I win that, then I'll think about, you know, everything else. But right now, it's just 1 set. Let me be able to compete and have a chance to be able to beat Mohamed Light. He also, I would like to point out, I think you guys are a little bit crazy. $6,000 is still pretty good. I think he's still excited for the chance for $6,000 more dollars.
Sure, I mean, he definitely, who wouldn't want $6,000 more dollars, right? I mean, it is not a small amount of money by any means, but look at his emotions right now. The $6,000, I feel like, I mean, how is that even close to the top of his mind when he just secured a trip to World Finals, just secured the $10,000 already, the $20,000 for making Worlds. Of course, the opportunity, as you said, to add more to that with every single time he wins at Worlds. I mean, I think that it might be harder for him to reset and get his mind focused here for this match against Mo than it was for him to get reset and focused for the match against Sosa.
Well, that's actually a great point. Winner's tilt is a thing where you're not focused and you make mistakes because of it.
Well, let's go ahead and see if he can avoid that winner's tilt as Juicy and I run our way into this grand final. Josh will rejoin us if we do get to a full-on bracket reset. And yeah, you see just trying to kind of reset himself right now, Juicy, is Pedro.
Yeah, one thing we didn't really talk about is extra bragging rights for this match, right? You know, if Mohamed Light wins this game on Twitter, it's gonna be like, okay, Mohamed Light's giving out golden tickets. If Pedro can somehow manage to beat Mohamed Light in these next 2 best of 3s, he has 100% guaranteed himself just the idea of, I won this golden ticket, no one gave it to me.
And that would certainly be a big feather in his cap. Does have to win 2 sets, as we mentioned before. Since Mohamed Light has not lost yet, he's in the winner's bracket. He still has the life to give, so a big hill to climb, even if it was 1 best of 3 for Pedro. Has to do it twice, and of course, did already lose to Mohamed Light a few minutes ago today.
Yes, sir. Looks like we're hopping into a Hog EQ mirror matchup here. Inferno Tower from Pedro. We haven't seen the building from Mo yet. Overall, Inferno not as strong in the mirror matchup, just because it's very expensive. And the other thing to look at here is the Mighty Miner versus Archer Queen. Like we talked about, I think Mighty Miner is definitely the champion of choice here. Valkyrie not nearly going to get as much value. Not to mention the Musketeer as well. After the Mighty Miner as the champ, allowing for that Musketeer. Musketeer can do great things in mirror matchups like this, just because the big spell, the Earthquake, doesn't get much value at all versus her.
Valk in front of the Archer Queen of the left-hand lane, and similar idea with the Mighty Miner in front of the Musketeer opposite side. High mortar. EQ will get there, as the Hog's going to try to get past. That DPS should be sufficient to shut it down.
Guards here in the middle, Inferno Tower as well. It's going to be a nice defense. Archer Queen getting some value on the left, but it's not much. And we can see how Mohamed Light is already leveraging this matchup advantage for the damage advantage. Going in for another Hog Guards combo. Snowball, a great thing versus Hog Rider, but it still finds a way to connect.
Valk hits a lot of things, but doesn't hit them all that hard. So
yeah,
Hog Rider does get the connection. 1976, the lead opening up here for Mohamed Light. And you see now, again, Pedro just like working to regain his focus as we get deeper into this one.
Interesting Inferno here. You know, it's an okay idea to have an anti-Earthquake Inferno to have options to be able to push over but you know, it's already dead. And like we talked about, the Inferno is just a very expensive card. He does cycle back to another one with his 3-card cycle, but the Earthquake chip is coming through, and that's all Mohamed Light needs to continue to do. The more Earthquakes he gets down, the further he will extend his lead. Speaking of that, though, Pedro's starting to come back a little bit with that Hog Rider connection.
A very important Hog Rider connection there, keeping us now just over 300 HP as the separator. But keep in mind, Mo does have dual lane pressure, as often is the case with the Pharaoh himself. Minute and 13 seconds left for Pedro to find his way back in this one.
Hog, Valk at the bridge, guards, and Log on the defense. No mortar and cycle maybe, or just maybe choosing not to use it. This Hog Rider is connecting. The Archer Queen ability is popping. And that tower's down to 11-14. Pedro with the damage advantage for the first time in this game.
Very big now mortar in cycle. Snowball plus the guards will take care of the opposite Hog Rider. And just like that, it seems the momentum has swung a fair bit. Mighty Miner will create some important pressure, and keep in mind that that right-hand tower is in play with that 1,000 bit of damage already done on that side. Here we go. Hog trying to break through for Mohamed Light. Snowball will shut that one down, but the advantage very slim right now for Pedro, who's going to have to contend with a little body blocking here. And wow, we are razor thin. 18 seconds left.
Archer Queen on the defense. Here comes the guards. Hog at the bridge. Guards on the defense here as well. EQ down. A Log with the Hog connects for a shot. 8 seconds left.
Absolutely. Inferno Tower is there, and Mo has to say good game. Pedro comes out and gets a good game one, and now has a chance to send us to a bracket reset.
Game 1 is down, like you said. I mean, that was insane. I can't believe there's got to be some sort of inaccuracy there by Mohamed Light, taking way too many hog hits in the middle and end game of that match, allowing Pedro to make this massive comeback. I don't even know what else to say. Well played to Pedro. He did a great job there.
Pedro has to be very happy also that he won that with the Snowball variant of Hog Rider. So he has Log available for something else. We might be seeing that Log come out here as an Ice Spirit gets out early.
A great point. Really good start by Mo already, though. Taking out that Musketeer, and the Miner Bats, the bridge can be detrimental in these situations. And here comes the Prince as well. Goblins are in cycle. Solid defense from Pedro, but really good pressure from Mo. The biggest thing there that allowed all that to happen was the Prediction Bandit bridge for that musket. That was crazy.
And we'll take the left-hand connection. You see Pedro kind of like, come on with that one. And Miner Bats has already given Pedro some fits and starts today. We'll see if Mohamed Light continues to try to take advantage, as Pedro has been prone to overextending himself in some of these matchups.
Absolutely. We've seen almost zero success from this Mega Knight Prince deck, Miner deck that we see Mohamed Light using at the top here. But I think that might be a little bit different in this case. A lot of the time, the Mega Knight Prince, especially if you have a Zap, the Mighty Miner can perform quite well versus control decks like Pedro's using here.
And here we go, Fireball going to work there. Ewiz won't be a problem on the right-hand side. Miner goes to the back. MK and Bats taken care of by a nice Mighty Miner ability, but still more than halfway through our opening chunk of time, and Pedro has not yet put any damage on the towers of Mohamed Light.
This is exactly what happened in the previous game. Pedro calls the GG zone. Maybe he's not confident in his ability to come back in this specific matchup. Well, I mean, we'll see how it goes. I think that it's not impossible. He just needs to have some better defense going forward and try and sneak through with some drills. Okay, I guess I didn't really realize the win condition until now, but Pedro is using drill, and Mega Knight is just so good versus that.
We'll see if there's any way to create any real damage here. Mega Knight not in cycle at all. Ewiz comes out. Goblin Drill will get some damage on that left-hand lane, and things are certainly closer now. Bomb Tower to pick up the wall breakers in the middle. One Bat escaping. No, does get picked up by the Princess Tower. Ewiz, no connection here.
Drill on the left-hand side. Mega Knight is in cycle. It's going to come down right now. There it goes. Gonna be a 0 damage taken defense. Goblins on defense versus the Bandit on the right. But here comes the Mega Knight counter push. Pedro's got to lock in and buckle up for this one.
And prediction arrows from Mohamed Light for the Goblins. Goblins do not come down. Ice Spirit, is there a log available? Yes, there is, cleaned up, but the elixir advantage pretty heavily for Mohamed Light. We do have a Mighty Miner on the board, though, for Pedro, who's already called good game here. Seems to already think this one is over, but not abandoning the fight quite yet.
Electro is getting some nice value versus the Mighty Miner, as always. Musketeer trying to make something happen on the right. Bandit tries to attack that. The Ice Spirit does a good job. Here comes the counter push. Log hits some of this stuff, but there's a lot of chip damage coming through on both sides.
And still calling good game here, Pedro. Showing some frustration at this stage.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, a lot of the time in Clash Royale, sometimes the matchup matters more than the gameplay. Speaking of gameplay here, though, a lot of mistakes micro-wise here from Pedro, and this is just allowing for the minor connections, the pre-arrows, the bandit connection, everything textbook from Mohamed Light. Pedro gonna finalize the good game mantra we've seen throughout this match with the Fireball Log and the King Tower.
He tried his absolute darndest, but that was certainly a tough situation for Pedro. So here we go. Into game number 3 in the first 2 games. Log, EQ, arrows out for Mohamed Light. NATO still available. We've seen him run a lot of E-Giant so far throughout this one. Fireball, EQ, Log, Snowball all gone. Arrows available, Lightning available, Poison available. Does Pedro go Minor Poison here? Does he go Comfort with this big game on the line?
You know, it's a good question. I think you're absolutely right. There it is. Minor coming through. First play, Mohamed Light with the Skelly King to tank for it. Maybe not exactly what we were looking for. Not Minor Poison, but going to be the Minor Mortar spam arrows deck instead, going against Mo, most likely using Royal Giant here.
And the emotional come down for Pedro still seeming to be a factor.
Absolutely. Poison getting some value here on the Flying Machine Barb Barrel. A little bit misplaced from Mo here. Missing one of the archers. Going to be allowing some pretty consistent chip damage. Taking the tower down to 25-39. And looks like I was wrong about Mohamed Light's deck, by the way. It's not going to be Royal Giant. Not the Tombstone Royal Giant that we've seen so much of. But instead, the Skelly King Goblin Graveyard. This is the second time we've seen this deck today, but one of the most popular decks in the meta.
And if there weren't enough goblins on the board already, Pedro drops some more right in front of the hut spawns there.
And here comes the interaction change that we've seen so much of. As you notice there, some of the Spear Gobs just ignoring the cannon cart there, locking on the tower, and that is due to the range buff. A little bit unpredictability from those goblins nowadays. But that's why the goblin is so strong. Always getting chip damage, it seems, no matter what. Here comes the mortar from Pedro on the left-hand side, trying to maybe make use of this elixir advantage.
A couple nice shots in for Pedro on the left-hand lane. And just like that, he's got good pressure on both sides. Clean on the bottom left-hand tower for Pedro. Right-hand side down to 25-85. Normally we see Mohamed Light with the early dual lane damage. This time it's Pedro getting both sides under duress.
Absolutely. Archers coming down for the Goblin here. Something I didn't really talk about yet, guys, is Pedro, no big spell. Once again, nothing for this Goblin hunt. No Mother Witch either. Definitely puts Mo in a pretty solid situation here. Just because the arrows are necessary for so many different things. You need for the Goblin hunt, the Rascals, and the Skelly King ability, and the Graveyard. It's a very tough situation to be in.
And there you go, seeing the arrows, maybe trying to make room for this cannon cart to put pressure on. And there you go, cannon cart has to have a response on the right, and so does the mortar. Rascals plus Goblins will do the job, and the cannon cart breaks down early.
Mortar does get that shot off. It's a pretty huge shot there, killing the Rascals. Goblin coming down for the defense. Pedro putting down some very nice pressure here, forcing out another defensive poison. Miner's gonna come through. No Skelly King ability, and the Goblins do pick up. Looks scary, but Mo's got this defense on lock.
So here we go, sudden death overtime. Lead on the right-hand lane by a little over 300 HP for Pedro.
Mortar at the bridge. Goblin Hunter defends, going to distract the mortar shot so it doesn't hit anything. Flying Machine in the middle, trying to snipe that Phoenix. Poison, once again, always being used in the Flying Machine here, and I really like that idea and that macro decision from Mohamed Light to continually do that. The Flying Machine is the only real way that Pedro can get a lot of damage.
And this time, arrows to work on little damage on the right-hand side, +1 Rascal Girl. King, Skelly King activation early here just to win this bridge fight. Flying Machine deep in his own territory. Poison this time will get triple value here. Flying Machine, Cannon Cart plus Tower as Pedro mortars to the opposite lane.
Mortars the opposite lane. Arrows come out on the Rascals and Goblins there, though. Skelly King has to drop to prevent that mortar from locking on. Pedro also going to make use of the Lost Souls on the map here to fill up his own Skelly King ability. Mo with the Goblin Hut, with the 3-card cycle of the Skelly King, and a pre-poison on the Cannon Cart. He's looking good here. He seems comfortable. This is the moment for Pedro to counter push with the Flying Machine, though, with the poison out of cycle, and here he goes.
Flying Machine in. Miner to go to the inside, trying to pull the Phoenix across, I guess. Archers up high. No way to break through, it seems. Second Flying Machine down. Skarmy to split. Poison not available for this Flying Machine.
25 seconds left. Here comes the first Graveyard of the game. Barbarian going to be tanking for the Graveyard. Huge counter push on the left. Arrows do get forced out on the defense, though. And now the Rascals are a huge defensive option for Mo. He uses the Skelly King ability instead, though. But he got the Phoenix for that Flying Machine. No issues there. Only 8 seconds left. And the mortar does lock for 0 shots.
Wow.
And that's game.
And victory overall for Pedro, but the bigger story, believe it or not, for the first time, we have someone winning the monthly final, not 1, not 2, not just 3 times, 3 times in a row. And Mohamed Light sipping the tea here, I guess, as he is now once again in a class of his own.
All in another day's work for Mohamed Light. Another $16,000 secured 3 months in a row. Absolutely game-breaking. Absolutely, yeah, I don't even know what to say. It's just impressive to another level what he's been able to accomplish here.
This is, it really is something unprecedented, and it doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon. And on top of all of this, Juicy, he's doing it in-game duels, right? We've talked about this a lot, how when you're doing the out-of-game duels, what we've done in the previous years, that you have so much flexibility, and the ability to be flexible has been so beneficial for Mohamed Light and Jebez. And when the season started, moving to the in-game duels where you have 3 decks pre-locked, or 4 decks pre-lock, excuse me, it felt like that was, if anything, the most likely thing to give a nerf to Mohamed Light. And it shows the insane levels that it has done nothing to slow his momentum.
Absolutely. You know, the in-game duels can be a huge difference maker. A lot of the time not having as much control over your decks, but he's got the analysis and coaching team behind him to make different four deck kind of combos for each individual player. And it's been, you know, just kind of fascinating to watch how successful he can be even in that situation.
And for the second time in a row, we saw this before with Pedro versus Mohamed Light in their winners bracket final. Pedro unable to get a Flying Machine to connect to overall secure the victory. So 2 times Mohamed Light able to hold off the Flying Machines of Pedro and get it done. And here you go. One more final look at the overall matchup between these two. Pedro, golden ticket, trip to World Finals. I mean, what's the bigger story here, right? You know, take a look at these decks here. Game number 1, really solid pick and play by Pedro. And we saw some creativity from Mohamed Light in the winners bracket final. Here we go to the grand final, and now he's back to a more central meta, and that also works for him, Juicy.
Yeah, I mean, this game 1, I really thought Mo was going to win it, but it didn't go in his favor. Looking at game 2, Mo didn't have the zap variation for the Mighty Miner, but even then, he still played fantastically. He has the Electrowiz for the Mighty Miner. He's got the Mega Knight for the Drill. He's got the Prince with the arrows. Predictions coming in for Goblins. Very difficult matchup for Pedro in that game 2.
And then I think one of the interesting things here, Juicy, is we saw game 2, no champion played. A lot of no champion gameplay today, and from Mohamed Light in particular. And here he comes out with the most frustrating deck in the meta right now, the Goblin Hut Graveyard. And man, what a phenomenal bit of play here, even with Pedro going Mortar Miner, not able to overcome it.
Yeah, Mortar Miner, you'd think it'd be good versus a deck like this, and it is, but he's missing the poison. He's missing that big spell. And as we saw, the arrow's not enough to be able to deal with every single card in this deck. It's just absolute swarm. Another thing I just want to touch on in this game 3 for Mo is his patience. He played only, I think, 2 graveyards, maybe 2 or 3 graveyards that game, but he waited until triple elixir to do it. And it's just the patience that really, like, I think it's just the patience there with a deck like this that really separates him from the other players.
The patience was absolutely tremendous, and I believe we're joined back here, yes, by Joshua AC Sharon. Josh, what's the bigger story of the day? Pedro winning his golden ticket, or Mohamed Light now being the first person to win not just 3 monthly finals, but 3 monthly finals in a row?
I want to give all the flowers in the world to Pedro. I think it's amazing. I think he was going to qualify regardless, even if he wasn't able to win a golden ticket. But I think the big story has to be Mohamed Light. This is a dynasty that is comparable to Tom Brady and what he was able to accomplish. I have never seen this level of domination in esports. You have to compare it to other like sports in general, because you can't win back to back to back after winning 3 different competitions that aren't even CRL related and then win a world finals. You can't win 7 competitions in a row and then not make that the story. It is unbelievable what he has been able to accomplish in the past 6 months, but also the past 2 years.
Unbelievable, and to put this in context too, when we talk about this, unbelievable on top of the context where this is a game where you don't always have control of every situation. We talk about matchup all the time. To do this in a game where you're a world-class player, if you're winning 65% of your matches, 65% of your games, to do this in that situation, to me, Juicy, just makes it even more. This is at least a contender, and someone might flame me for it, for the most dominant run in esports.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to agree. Like, where else do you see something like this? I 100% agree with what you said about the matchup and everything like that as well. It's just fantastic. I mean, let's have a quick look at this leaderboard. I mean, just look at the points here. 510 obviously doesn't really matter. He already has the golden ticket, but I mean,
so far.
I guess, yeah, so far ahead.
And I want to point out a couple of big things here. Of course, 3 golden tickets awarded out of our 7, Mohamed Light, Pedro, and last month's golden ticket winner Pandora. But look at some big changes here, right? We now see Mugi up in contention, was not in those top 7 spots, right? So you 7 out, you take away the golden tickets. Mugi was not in those spots before this month. Now here he is in 4th. Sosa, on the back of his big performance, rocketed from 16th up to 5th place, which is going to effectively be 3rd once you take out Mohamed Light and Pedro from being in front of him, right? Tied with Adriel and Morten. Adriel, great performance. And now you see a very important person there in 7th place, Morten. Needs to put together probably at least one more really solid monthly finals performance to be able to secure himself a top 7 spot in the points once we end this year.
Looking at 9 through 16th here for the rest of the leaderboard, these spots are going to be more important as we see more of the top players collect their golden tickets. 7 players from the leaderboard in the point system are making it to the World Finals, guys, along with 2 players from the Chinese League. You see a lot of players that were at the previous World Finals, but we see some other players that are making a bit of a comeback. Maybe Surgical Gaba, maybe Mini Minter, some kind of OG players, along with OP Sam. AC, I just want to ask you, like, is there any player out of those 3 that you see making the World Finals this year?
I mean, Mini Minter always shocks me. So, like, sometimes he's the best player in the world, and sometimes he can fall off. So, I expect to see him in the World Finals. I expect him to have 1 or 2 more months of just pure dominance. On the other side, Surgical Goblin, I can't believe you said LP Sam. I always say XOP X Sam just because it's fun to say. And both of those players could absolutely make a run, but neither of them are making it to these top 8s. So I'd love the fact that they are consistently doing well, but they need to consistently start doing great if they want to see them in the World Finals.
Well, speaking of consistently doing great, of course, there's one guy who's been doing consistently great throughout the year, and now it's getting to be ridiculous, Mo. Let's just start there. It's becoming insane. I don't think you've done anything other than first in a competition in the last 9 months. Talk to me a little bit about your mindset right now, because I don't know if you heard us on the broadcast beforehand. This feels like not just the most unprecedented run in Clash Royale, but the most unprecedented run in esports. How are you doing what you're doing in a game where a world-class player loses 35% of the time?
Oh, well, thank you very much, Rich. First of all, I'm just I don't really have much words to describe. Like, my consistency is very, very, very great. Like, I just find myself in great situations in every competition. I find myself doing the right thing again and again. I think, like, there's a lot of factors that come into play here, but I think the most important factor is just to have fun at what you're doing, like playing or working or whatever. I think when you have fun and enjoy what you're doing, you do it you do it very efficiently. And for me, I really love this game. Like, I like the competitive spirit. I like competing, and this game is very appealing to me because it's just 3 minutes or 5 minutes maximum. It finishes quickly, and I just love playing this game. It's very enjoyable.
It's very clear how much you do love this game, and speaking of this game, this weekend, this is your third monthly final win in a row. This one feels like it might have been the hardest fought win of those three. You had a very razor thin win in Game 3 in the opening match of the weekend. Another razor thin win yesterday as well. And then today, coming down to the wire the last couple of seconds with that very crazy push by Pedro on the left hand, on what would have been your right hand side from your perspective. Was this from your thought? Is this the hardest of the three you've had to fight for, or where does this rank with the 3 monthly finals you've won so far this year?
Yeah, I think you are right. This month has been very difficult. A lot of close finishes in many of my matches, not just in the monthly final, even in the Swiss bracket and the round robin too. Even though this month I won from the winners bracket, like the last 2 months I won from the losers bracket, but I still think this month, yeah, as you said, it was pretty difficult. I think I always got the clutch moment. It feels like I always get it. It's just very nice that you always get the momentum towards you.
Only a couple more questions, then I'll let you go here, Mo. First one, you faced Pedro twice this weekend in these brackets. You're going to be facing him again potentially at World Finals. What did you learn about Pedro as an opponent through your gameplay with him that you might take with you to World Finals later this year?
Oh, Pedro, first of all, I'm pretty good friends with him, and I think he's an insane player. I really like his playstyle. It's very similar to mine. Like, his special deck is like Mighty Miner decks with Miner or a Hog Rider. He's insanely good with it, and I really love how he plays the cycle decks, because I'm a cycle player myself, so his gameplay impresses me a lot. I think we could face at World Finals. It's always an interesting matchup when you have a cycle player against a cycle player. But yeah, I'm hoping the best for him, and I'm happy for him that he got the golden ticket.
And final question for you, Mo, and it's becoming maybe par for the course, or maybe a moot point at this stage in your career, but here you go. You won a monthly final again, won a nice prize pool with the $16,000. And of course, the title on top of that for our May champion. What, if anything, are you going to do today to celebrate?
Oh, I think my mother always likes to get a delivery, like a special delivery from a restaurant or something like that, celebrate and get a cake or something. She always supports me. Of course, my parents, but my mother especially. Special shout out to her. She's always very supportive of me. And I love her so much.
Well, Mama Light, certainly a big factor, of course, in your life and in your success. Great meeting her at World Finals. And of course, we expect to see her there again this year. Mohamed Light, congratulations one more time. Go enjoy your day, and we will see you probably back here next month, is my suspicion. So there you go. There you go, boys. Mohamed Light. Any major takeaways from that interview for you, Juicy? I mean, we covered a fair bit of ground here.
I mean, I just thought it was interesting when you asked him, like, what do you attribute to your success? And he just said, I just love this game. I just have fun playing it. Like, that's not what I was expecting to hear. It just seemed like, this is really what he loves. And I think that's the key to success in any walk of life or in anything that you're doing. So it was really nice to hear that from him.
Josh, we did see, of course, some phenomenal play from Mohamed Light, but lots of respect for Pedro as well, even compared his play style to his own. We have a pretty big field out there, but where do you rank Pedro on the potential threats to Mohamed Light when we go towards World Finals?
Well, so far, I think he's number one. I mean, what do you like better? Do you like $10,000 and a free trip to wherever the World Finals is going to be held, or do you like 10K? Okay, yeah. Do you like 10K, or do you like a compliment from Mo? Right here, it just has to feel so good for Pedro to have this performance. Yes, he didn't show up in the finals overall, but this has to be so great for Pedro.
Well, it's been phenomenal for Pedro, and of course, a fun weekend for all of us here at Clash Royale League. If you have not yet, subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications, ring that bell, because we are back here every month. 4 more golden tickets to give away, and of course, follow us at Esports Royale EN on all social media. For everybody here at Clash Royale League, I am Rich Slayton, Juicy J over there on the far right of your screen, Joshua AC Sharon right there in the middle, of course, my brother, Andrew Guy, back with us again next month. For everybody here on the production side of things, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time right back here on Clash Royale League. This hog goes back to the drill instead of going across the river. And that's going to be Sosa, proving everybody wrong today. Pedro find a way through. Arrows trying to clean. Is that flying machine gonna make it? Inferno Dragon picks up. Mohamed Light shuts the door after giving a
I'm like, that kind of rush of emotions is so beautiful to see. It's so pure, and it's seeing that in the community, winning the golden ticket, I will never get over.
Winning the monthly final, not 1, not 2, not just 3 times, 3 times in a row. And Mohamed Light sipping the tea here, I guess.